What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmaker's Corner podcast. I'm your host for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V. It is August 2nd, 2026 when I am recording this here. And I'm bringing you your 2026 5A Colorado High School Girls Flag Football Season Preview. We got some great teams that we are going to talk about here, but I did not do this episode alone. I got to shout out my guy Gino, who's obviously part of the Playmaker's Corner, and he will be helping me cover 5A this year, as well as our intern here, one of our new interns, Hailey Stanton, from Florida. She's giving us that outside perspective, obviously played, in college for a number of years and was a next level quarterback, and then had a great career in Florida on the high school level as well, and currently coaches too, I believe. So she has plenty of flag football experience, and I thought it'd be really cool to bring in some outside experience to help us cover girls Colorado high school flag football this year. And so that's what we got. It's going to be a very, very fun season here. And so this is how this episode is set up. So myself, Hailey, and Gino ranked teams 1 through 10. We each have our own individual rankings. So, when you listen to some of the reasons that Hailey say, or some of the reasons that I would say that Gino said as well, there are different teams ranked at different spots, right? Now, our PMC rankings is the average between us three and those rankings there. And so I will be going in order of our PMC rankings, starting with the teams that were just outside that got votes from myself, Gino, and Hailey, and then going into the top 10 from there. And so that's basically how we do that. And I average it out by this. If any of us rank a team number 1, they get 10 points. 2, 9 points, 3, 8 points, and so on and so on, and then add up the points, and that's how it's averaged out. And so we're going to talk about a lot of teams here. We are going to go over our preseason rankings as well, if you couldn't tell by that. And we're going to talk about the storylines for each of these teams, players they lost, players they bring back, potential coaching changes. But I don't think there were really any coaching changes in this 5A group here, at least not that I could tell of. And then we'll project a little bit of the future here. And, it is a preseason rankings, and just gotta throw this out there as well. Obviously, me and Gino covered 5A a long time ago, 2 years ago, then took that break as we both are coaching currently for a team here in Colorado, so there's no bias there, really. I think the only bias is that we did play two 5A teams, but we'll talk about that later. But other than that, we've been around these teams since the beginning. Myself and Gino. Hailey, she's been around this game for forever over in Florida, and so we are definitely more than qualified to talk about this. And if you disagree, hey, feel free to let us know on social media and whatnot, or you could also do your own homework. But a lot of work was put into this. Myself and Gino were able to go to a number of preseason tournaments as well as combines and workouts and stuff like that. We also watched the NFL Flag Football Championships too, and so we are going off of the information that we know currently, and the play that we've seen most currently from a lot of these players too, which did really affect our rankings, if I'm being completely honest with you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the teams that did not make our PMC top 10, but were teams that myself, Hailey, or Gino included in our personal top 10s. Okay, so just outside our top 10, we have a number of teams here that we wanted to mention. I will say that all the players or all the teams that Gino ranked made our PMC top 10. Now, the order might be slightly different, but all the teams are there. This is really for the teams that were just outside, teams that, myself and Hailey ranked. And honestly, this 7 to 10 spot in our top 10 was really hard, if I'm being completely honest with you. There's a lot of teams that all of us, we talked about and we kind of view in pretty similar spots here. Like, when you really look at some of these teams, they're like, can we replace this team with another one up north or whatever? Sure, we probably could. But we kind of went with what we had to go with. So let's go ahead and get this started. And actually, we're going to start with some of the ones in Hailey's top 10 here. And let's start with Thunder Ridge. I think for her, they were at 10 right here. And this is what she had to say about Thunder Ridge. She said a deeper dive into their 8-8 record reflects some losses that were within one score. If the sophomores and juniors who are nearly stat leaders improve and apply that to the game, they definitely have potential to improve the record and be in the top 10. And so let's look at their season from last year. So last year went 8-8, and they ended their season actually in the playoffs. I believe this was a loss to Horizon, and it was a very close loss. It was a 13-7 loss here. I want to say it was a neutral playoff game as well, which is a tough way to end your season, and that's a decent team right there. But looking at some of the other wins they had from last year, they beat Manual 27-0, Vista Ridge 14-0. They beat Doherty in overtime 6-0, beat Chatfield 14-7, and they started off pretty hot on a 4-game winning streak before dropping a tough one to Chaparral 33-18, which looked a little bit closer than maybe what it was, but that's still not a bad showing. Then they play Mountain Vista, who, is still a buzzsaw of a team, and they lose to them 41-13. Then they bounce back and beat Arapahoe by 6. Heritage by 33. Drop a close one to Grandview. That's probably one they really wanted, 14-7, which is unfortunate there. And then that's kind of where they go on a little bit of a losing streak here. Douglas County 33-19. Rock Canyon 33-14. Regis Jesuit 13-0. And those are all teams that made the playoffs, mind you, except for Regis, I believe. But, that is a tough stretch right there. Also, that's like 3 games in 4 days. Rock Canyon, Regis were back-to-back. But then they bounce back to go ahead and take care of Highlands Ranch, 25-6. Take care of Ponderosa, 25-13, and then lose a lot to Legend, who did end up going to state, 34-6, and then lost to Horizon in that first round of the playoffs, 13-7. And so, there's a lot of close games on this board when you look at this Thunder Ridge team. This Thunder Ridge program as a whole has always had athletes. They've always had, some tall, strong athletes. Their defense has been good. Last year's offense was pretty decent as well, but they do lose their quarterback, Claire Wilson, who was decent enough. 2,427 yards, 24 touchdowns to 21 picks, though. Still more touchdowns than picks, which is what you want. 231 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. That might be hard to replace. Know the year before there were some quarterback troubles. We'll see if they are able to bounce back from that. And unfortunately, their backup quarterback, or at least statistically, was Jordan Cochran, who was a great linebacker for them. But she got the majority of the attempts. And then after her, it looks like Cassidy Bailing, I want to say that's how you say it. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong. But she only had 7 pass attempts, so you're not really bringing on a varsity quarterback with a lot of experience, at least from last year here. Receiving-wise, you're still relatively young, though. Cochran leaving is tough because she is one of your best overall athletes, but you do bring back Claire Sims, who I believe made our watch list, was just a sophomore last year, but, is one of those players that Hailey mentioned could be due for a big season. 525 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. You also have Ella Rathke right behind her with 496 yards and 5 touchdowns, and then the freshman Lainey Ensign with 298 yards and a touchdown here. So, receiving-wise, you only really lose your top receiver. Other than that, you bring back the majority of your core. Losing the quarterback is tough, though, and that's something they're going to have to figure out. Defensively, you do have a number of seniors here. Jordan Cochran, your lead flag puller, who had 80, is gone. And then your 3rd, 4th, 5th leaders in flag pulls are gone, and O'Neill, Wagner, and Michelina right there. So that'll be something they got to replace. O'Neill was also one of their lead rushers here, it looks like. Meredith O'Neill. She had 13 sacks. They do bring back that freshman, though, Lainey Ensign, like I said, who had 12 sacks. But losing your sack leader is never an easy thing to overcome. And then Cochran was their lead interception leader with 9, but they do bring back Bailey Rathke as well, who had 5 and 4 interceptions too. So defensively, I mean, I'm not as worried. Thunder Ridge historically, I feel like both boys and girls programs have had athletes, and defensively, that's kind of been the identity, and so they'll replace those players. And it's not like they're graduating their whole defense, just probably a little over half, and then you do bring back some skill players here. Now, the big question for Thunder Ridge, in my opinion, will be, offensively, what is that production going to look like here? Are they going to be able to, I guess to start, are they going to be able to replicate what they had last year? Could it be better than last year? We'll see. You could look at this receiving core, and you could probably go ahead and assume that they're all going to take a step forward, but you do need a capable quarterback for them. And we did get to watch them a little bit in the off season here, and they kind of ran the ball a lot. Got to watch them at a preseason thing that Doherty hosted over at Gary Berry Stadium down in the Springs, and the times we did watch Thunder Ridge, they were running the ball kind of a lot here, which is interesting in in flag football, because it is flag football, not regular football. And so, we'll see what happens, but they did have athletes over there when we watched them. There's no surprise defensively. They looked pretty sharp as well, But for now, they are just outside our top 10. Now, we're going to go back and forth here. But I want to talk about this team here specifically, Chatfield. For me, I had Chatfield at 9 in my personal rankings. They will finish just outside here. And Chatfield, is a interesting team, to say the least. So what I really like about this team, first off, actually, before I talk about what I like, let's talk about how last season went. 8-9, so very similar to Thunder Ridge here. Their season ended with a loss to Ralston Valley, 29-6, which is tough there. And then looking at the regular season, started off hot with a 3-game winning streak, beating Dakota Ridge 14-0, Eagle Crest 31-0, Smoky Hill 42-0. Then they drop a close one to Thunder Ridge 14-7. It's probably a winnable game right there, which is tough. But then they bounce back with a big win over Mullen 33-0. That's a good defense as well. But then they lose to Valor Christian, and they lose by a lot, 43-14. They drop Ralston Valley. They drop one to Ralston Valley, 38-0. They play Arvada West a little bit closer, but still lose to them 32-20. Then they lose to Columbine, which I don't think happened before. Maybe I was mistaken, but I don't think they've lost to them before, and they lost to them 20-12, so that's kind of a big deal. Then they beat Highlands Ranch, which they should have, 45-12. They lose to Valor again, this time worse, 33-0. But then they bounce back and they beat a very talented 4A Green Mountain team, 34-30. Which shows you a little bit of their potential. And then they play a couple of opponents again here. Ralston Valley, they lose 40-12. They bounce back and avenge that Columbine game, 32-20. Then they lose to Arvada West again, 49-7. And then it looks like right here, I can't tell. Let me see if this is a playoff game. It is a playoff game, sorry. So actually, they won their first round playoff game against Pooter School District here, the combined team, 15-14. Which is maybe a little bit closer than you would have expected out of a team that just started that year. And also, not all those players are from the same school compared to Chatfield, who's been around since the beginning. So, interesting for sure. And then they lose to Ralston Valley in the next round, 29-6. So they definitely still made the playoffs, so that's good. Would you say this is, I don't know, by Chatfield standards, is this what they really wanted? Probably not. There were some close games that could have given them double-digit wins at least, which is definitely tough there. I don't know if they would have won their conference/league. It is a pretty good league right there that they are playing in. But, they are still a very good team, and they probably should have won double-digit, or probably have double-digit wins. They just didn't. But there is definitely some up and down play. Now, let's look at this team here. For me, I really like Chatfield because offensively, it felt like they brought back pretty much everyone. I mean, just looking at their stats here, offensively, I'm looking at pretty much everyone here. Defensively, they lose Ella Wood, who's their lead puller, who had 70, and then other than that, I mean, they pretty much return everyone else. Elwood did also have 9 sacks, which is tough there, and 4 interceptions, just kind of doing it all. But the defense is pretty much intact outside of Elwood. Offensively, I don't think they really graduate anybody or lose anybody. They do lose Lauren Scott, who is their second leading receiver, had 547 yards and 10 touchdowns. So you can't actually overlook that. That is a big deal right there, for sure. So that's tough, but they bring back everyone else, and this is why I am high on Chatfield here as a top 10 team. I had them at 9 here. Sadie Goodwin, their quarterback. She had a decent season, 33 touchdowns, 22 picks, but 2,348 yards. She also had 1,020 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. She is a dual threat. You know, she is somebody that I believe maybe played some receiver, I want to say, the year before. I mean, even last year had 250 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns, too. So it's not like she can't. I mean, she's a very versatile athlete. I do think she can be a good dual threat and is a college-level player if she chooses to. I think there's a lot of colleges where she would absolutely fit into that system because of her skill set and athleticism here. And I kind of expect her to take another step forward as a quarterback, you know, be a little bit more efficient, definitely bring down those turnovers there, and you know, just be able to score on a more consistent basis. I feel like there are times where this Chatfield offense just wasn't quite there, and where they needed to be production wise, and yeah, you know, that's tough for sure, you know. Especially because they have so much talent here. Just looking at what they have Jenna Lee, who is their lead receiver. Who's going to be a senior this year, 986 yards, 15 touchdowns, 86 receptions. You have Ellie Buck, who I feel like has been playing this game forever, but as a receiver, really took a step forward. 20 receptions, 339 yards, 5 touchdowns here. You have Kina Archuleta, who I think could be even better on the offensive side of the ball. She had 204 yards and 2 touchdowns. It also has some pretty serious speed as well. And then, I mean, I feel like that's enough offensively. If your quarterback's a dual threat, I feel like that's enough weapons for you to be a pretty formidable playoff team at the very least here. Defensively, losing Ella Wood is tough, but you bring back Ellie Buck, who's a great safety. You also bring back your top 2 rushers here in Kendall Holenkamp, who had 15 last season as a junior, and then Violet, yep, I think that's how you say that. Harris had 14 sacks last year. And honestly, if Kenny Archuleta, if she got into that rotation, I feel like she's an excellent rusher, and so that's a nice rushing group right there. As far as interceptions goes, like I said, Buck has been a great safety, 17 interceptions, definitely a player that can play on the college level and be great there, and we've known that for a while, to be honest with you. Their second leader in interceptions was actually a freshman, Brianne Kohler, who had 5 interceptions here. And then Sadie Goodwin also added 2 interceptions on that side of the football as well. And so when you look at this Chatfield team, I mean, they bring back a lot here. And also, you know, they are one of the more established programs here. Culturally, they do win a lot. I mean, there really is no excuse for this team to be top 10. Now, have they always played like a top 10 team? Last season? I don't think so. I think losing to Thunder Ridge, I don't know. I don't know if they exactly played like a top 10 team there. When they lost to Columbine, they definitely didn't play like a top 10 team over there. And then I think losing to Pooter, as good as that Pooter team is, and you know, they got a lot of talent, I really don't feel like they are 1 point lesser than them. And so we'll see, you know, the progressions this Chatfield team takes going into this next season and whatnot. But that's a team that I wanted to highlight, as I did have them at 9. And then the last team we wanted to talk about here is Denver South. They're on Hailey's top 10 right here at 8. She said, although they only had 3 losses, I didn't see much adjustment from those losses. A lot of their stat leaders were seniors last year, especially on offense. The defense will really have to carry in. A new offense may affect those close wins. And last year, great record, by the way, 14-3. They also won their league 8-0 in that 5A City League there. And they had some close losses for sure. They showed that as a team, they could hang with a lot of squads here. Let's just go down the line, go down their schedule. Started off strong with wins over Mullen, 38-7. Heritage 13-0. G-Dub 46-0. By the way, Mullen and George Washington, 2 teams who in 4A were multiple rounds deep in the playoffs, so big wins there. Then they play Valor, and they play them pretty close, only losing 27-21. High key, that would have been a big upset, but definitely a game that you love to see here. Then they get back on, and they go on a pretty massive winning streak, pretty much just terrorizing their league. Vista Peak 42-6, Rangeview 35-12, Denver East 40-0, Smoky Hill 38-18, Northfield 42-0, Regis Jesuit 19-0, Vista Peak Prep again, this time a little bit closer, but still beat 14-13. Then they beat Rangeview 33-6, and then they play Legend here, and this game, was a little bit closer, 27-14. Legend, though, still got away with that win. Then they beat Denver East 20-0, Northfield 39-6 here, and then I believe they actually played Northfield in the playoffs, and they beat them 43-0, and then they played Legend. And unfortunately, this game wasn't as close as the last one, as they lose 32-6 to them here to Legend in the playoffs, which is tough for sure, which is definitely tough. So, not a bad season at all from Denver South here. When you're winning this much, it's definitely hard to not put this team in your top 10. But when you do look at who they are losing, and Hailey Stanton did mention this, they are losing a lot on offense. Quarterback Iris Duran, 41 touchdowns, 2,100 yards, gone. Their lead rusher, Lindwall, Kate Lindwall, had 881 rushing yards, which is kind of crazy in flag football, and 10 rushing touchdowns. She's gone. You also had Asha Daniels, your second leading rusher, 269 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. She's gone. She also had 762 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns as their second leading receiver, so that's tough. They also lose Dylan Moyer here, who was their lead receiver, had 859 yards and 18 touchdowns, so that's tough as well. Lindwall was also their 4th leading receiver. So the majority of this offensive core is just gone, just like that, and that's a lot of production to replace there. Defensively, losing Asha Daniels is tough. She had 50 flag pulls as well on defense, 5 sacks, and then was their co-leader in interceptions with 11. So that's tough, but they do return more of their defense, I would say, than their offense. Their lead flag puller, Alex Holman, comes back with 69 flag pulls. Maya Davis, one of their safeties, had 58 flag pulls. Also co-led in interceptions with 11. Holman had 8, by the way, as well. They bring back their lead rusher here, Abby Garcia, who had 23 sacks last season in 16 games. But they do lose Zanaya Hall, who had 16 sacks. Lindwall, like I said, on offense, also contributed on defense. She had 11 sacks here, which is tough. So you're losing a little bit of your rushing core, but you do bring back a decent amount of your defense. And so there's definitely enough talent on the defensive side for them to make a push at the playoffs. I also, if I'm just being honest with you, I don't know how strong that league they are in, so it'll be interesting to see where those other teams are as programs, and we'll see how that goes. But they have a lot of replacing to do offensively. Quarterback, lead receivers, right? Lead rushers. Those aren't easy things to replace, especially since they've been starting for multiple years as well. So we're going to have to see how that goes for Denver South right there. But they did get votes to be in our top 10, so I wanted to go ahead and make sure to mention them. They will, unfortunately, though, at least for our preseason rankings, just finish outside. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and start with our top 10 PMC rankings here. Starting right here at 10, we have Doherty High School. Now, this is a team, I will say this because I could already hear the bias here. This is a team that myself and Gino got to coach against last season, and did not go well. Very different programs at different spots currently. But we have a lot of respect for Rodney Pearson, their head coach. You know, he's a friend of the podcast, a great guy as well. A lot of respect for that program in general. Make sure you check out our Alyssa Ramos interview, by the way, talking a little bit about Doherty history in that interview, and just a great person overall. So that dropped over the summer. But, you know, this Doherty team, I think me and Gino had them ranked at 10, and then Hailey had them ranked at 9 here. Before we get into reasons, let's talk about last season, and let's recap that a little bit here. So, last season, had a good season, 11-5, won the league at with an 8-1 record here, and they really started their season with a tough schedule here, starting with Mountain Vista. By the way, 3 straight away games to start here. So they started at Mountain Vista, dropped to them 42-7. Played Valor though, closer, 26-0, and then lost a tough one to Thunder Ridge in overtime, 6-0. But then they bounce back and they go ahead and take down Heritage, 33-6. Dakota Ridge, 12-7. Us 50-0, and then they beat TCA 19-18 in triple overtime. By the way, when they played us, that's when their league schedule started. So there's that. And so my bad, let me pause real quick here. Their non-league here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They played 5 games here, and all those teams are playoff teams right there. 1, 2, and 3, which is not bad at all because one of those teams did go on to win state, and then Dakota Ridge went to the playoffs as well. I think actually all these teams, except for Heritage, went to the playoffs. So definitely a tougher out-of-league schedule that got them ready for league, granted. And then back to league, they beat TCA in triple overtime. They go ahead and take down Palmer 26-0, Elizabeth 40-6, Coronado in a closer one, 20-0. Then they lose to Vista Ridge, and I thought this one was interesting at the time when it happened. 7-6 here. Yeah, which I don't know. Did not really know what to think about that one right there, but they do lose to Vista Ridge 7-6. They beat Fountain Fort Carson though 26-6. They get by Air Academy 16-8, and then I think this was their last regular season game. I don't know if they were playing everyone, but they do beat CSCS in overtime 6-0. So there you go. That did happen. But then we have playoffs, and they got to host their first playoff game, and I actually live just down the street from them, and so I got to listen. Like, I didn't get to go because I had other things going on, but I did listen to the last half of that game here. And yeah, it was pretty hype. They were going crazy over there. They won a thriller of a playoff game here, 25-21 over Legacy, which must have been electric. And then they had to go ahead and pull Legend, which was kind of tough. That they got a tough pull in this playoff bracket here, and they fall to them 32-12. Altogether, though, another winning season, 11-5, went 11-3 the year before, and also won their league 2 years in a row, so that is pretty massive here. I think this year they'll be moving into a different league though, so that will change, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But let's talk about players that they are losing / bringing back here. And so I think right off the bat, Santi Keys, one of their just best overall athletes. She had 972 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns, but defensively, she's been a key part of that defense for the last 2 seasons for them. As far as flag pulls go, had 40 flag pulls, 7 sacks for Doherty, so that's going to be tough to replace. They also lose Jada Simmons, who is going off to play for Defiance, I want to say, in Ohio, and she is a great skill player, great receiver, and great safety for them. As a receiver, had Well, 410 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, but also 288 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns on only 32 receptions there. And then defensively, 18 flag pulls and 14 picks and 10 pass deflections there. Sorry, 4 picks and 10 pass deflections there for Jada Simmons, who is a college level player and will be moving on to do her thing there. Simmons was actually their second leading receiver here, and then they do lose. I know she got injured near the end of last season, which affected some things obviously there. But they do lose Aubrey Smith here. Was a junior last year, but I believe she has moved, or at least that's what we were told. So that's going to be a tough loss. Offensively was their lead receiver, so they are losing their top 2 lead receivers and their 4th leader in keys there. And then defensively, they lose their top 2 flag pullers. You had Aubrey Smith, and then you have Yaslin. I think it's Sino, I want to say. I feel like I'm saying that wrong, though. They lose their sack leader in keys, and then they lose their co-interception leader in interceptions in Jada Simmons, who had 4 for them. And so there's some key pieces that are being lost here, but this is why we like this Doherty team here. Let's talk about the players they bring back, starting with Neela Thompson, their dual threat quarterback, who just got her first offer from Bridgeport, a D2, I believe, so congrats to her. She is a strong arm quarterback that could definitely move as well. I think every year she has continued to develop as a passer and has gotten better. And obviously the rushing ability has always been there. But last season threw for 1,313 yards, 21 touchdowns to 10 picks. Decently efficient there. 50% completion percentage though, which is a little tough, but is, I want to say, better than last season or the season before. As a rusher, was her second leading rusher with 746 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, getting it done on the ground over there. And then defensively, had 8 flag pulls. She, I believe, can also play defense, but did not do it as much last year. But she's an overall great athlete. She's a next level quarterback, and so whenever you get to bring back a dual threat quarterback, that's super valuable, especially to a team like Doherty, who runs the ball a lot. Do it in creative ways, mind you, but could still pass it. Bringing back a dual threat is absolutely massive. So that's big time. Now, they also bring back one of their other big playmakers here in Bella Marquez. Last season had 260 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Had 272 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. I thought personally that she would maybe be able to step in the place of Alyssa Ramos and, take on some of that production. But you did have Aubrey Smith and Jada Simmons kind of break out here, have mini breakout seasons, and go ahead and take on a lot of that workload and just produce for this Doherty team at the end of the day. Now, defensively, Bella Marquez is one of the best DBs in the entire state. Had 4 interceptions here. And Aubrey Smith led the team in interceptions, so they do lose their interception leader, and then their second interception leader tied with Bella Marquez here. So that is tough, but she does come back. As teams figure out who she is, they're going to stop throwing her away. And, that'll affect the stats a little bit, but it doesn't affect her impact on the defense, who, they lose a decent amount of seniors. They lose, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 of their top 7 flag pullers, which is tough, but, this is a Doherty team that has shown that they are deep, that they, I don't want to say regenerate, but, they do kind of regenerate and replace talent a little bit faster than some other programs are obviously well coached over there by Pearson and Ramos. And so, it's really hard to look at this Doherty defense and be like, yeah, they're not going to be able to replace anybody, or they're going to struggle with that defensively. If anything, I am the least worried about this defense here, but, I think there are some questions to be answered. And so we'll see how that looks. But, you could look at Nakamoto here, who had 42 flag pulls. That's a sophomore, mind you, Kylie Nakamoto last year. You can look at Destiny Turner, who is a linebacker, rusher, and also made our watch list and looked pretty good in the off season. She's probably gonna have a breakout season, honestly. So that's gonna be another key piece there. Neela Thompson comes back. She has defensive experience, and I think she could be a very good linebacker on the next level as well. So she'll contribute if needed to. And so defensively, not too worried about Doherty. I mean, when you have a DB like Bella Marquez, who you can move at corner, you can move to safety, you could really make that work with the talent you have there. Also, I think Destiny Turner is going to be somebody who could be a big-time disruptor at linebacker and rusher here this upcoming season. I mean, they'll figure it out. I think this defensive program, this program really is defensive-minded, I would say, and then they run the ball. I think those are the two identities of Doherty, and they've been doing that well. And so, yes, they lose players, but they do bring back key players at the key positions that they've needed to be successful in the past. And so I think the big thing for Doherty is, just looking at them, and I'll read off Hailey's reasons here for why she has them ranked at 9. But I think the big thing for Doherty is that we're looking at this team and we're trying to see if, they can take the next step forward, if they could go into the next round of the playoffs. To do that, I think you need more from your offense here. Defensively, like I said, I don't really worry about it. I think they could match up with most other offenses in the state if they really wanted to. But offensively, you probably need a little bit more here. Neela Thompson, we know what she is as a runner. Can she be a more elite passer, right? Or can she take that next step as a passer and, be able to get more receivers involved outside of the run game? Or, be able to still get receivers involved at an efficient level, if not, taking a next step with that while still running the ball with the athletes they have over there. That's the big question there. I think the other question is, just looking at Bella Marquez's offensive production on that side of the football here. We know she's a great athlete. I think if she gets the ball in her hands a little bit more here, she should be able to produce. And I mean, she already was the lead rusher and receiving leader, but would love to see her do more with those reps there and, help carry this offense with Neela Thompson. But if she can't do that, then who else can stand up and, go ahead and fill a role, take some pressure off of Marquez, and give this Doherty offense a little bit more versatility to work with. So we'll see what happens. I don't doubt that they will make the playoffs here and will probably win a first-round game here. But how far they go really depends, I feel like, on the offensive side of the ball. That is my personal opinion there. And if there's anything about Doherty, I mean, they've gotten better each year. They developed their players very well over there. And most likely there's going to be a player that we don't exactly know about yet who is going to have some big games to start the season, and then they're going to be rolling, right? And they do end up being the perfect complement to a Thompson, to a Marquez, to a Destiny Turner, maybe even on the defensive side of the football. And this is a team we've seen play plenty in the offseason here. Literally yesterday, I know they looked pretty good in their scrimmages, I want to say against Regis Jesuit and Lutheran, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure. And then, got to watch them about a month ago as they hosted a number of other teams as well, including Valor Christian. And, I thought they did their thing against them. And so it'll be interesting to see where Doherty lands at the end of the season here. We have an idea of where they land usually, which I think does deserve a top 10 spot for sure. But can they take that next step forward, especially in a 5A classification that is definitely more wide open than it has ever been before? It's going to be up to them to go ahead and take advantage of that. Now, this is what Hailey had to say about Doherty. She said almost all of this team's primary players were juniors last year, so they'll be going into the season ready to play and earn those wins and hopefully put them in the top 10. Last year, they proved they can hang with the higher level teams. They'll have a pretty strong offense led by Neela Thompson here. She also mentions Aubrey Smith, but she didn't know that she wouldn't be coming back. But they will be going into their senior season. So Hailey really likes how this team responded playing against those other 5A teams last year and also dominating league. And so that's why she has them there. Gino, I mean, we got to coach against them firsthand. A lot of respect for Coach Pearson and this Doherty team, and we expect them to take the next step forward and represent the Springs here in the playoffs very well on the 5A level. All right, now moving on to number 9 in our PMC rankings, we have Horizon. Myself and Gino, I had them in our top 10. I believe I had them at 8, and Gino was in a pretty similar spot there. But let's talk about them last season. So last year in 2025, they went in 11-6, which was pretty solid. They would start out with a pretty big upset win over Cherry Creek, 24-14 there. I know they didn't have Addie Beck, but still a win over Cherry Creek is it's a win regardless, right? I mean, that's still pretty big time for them, and you got to be happy about that. They did have Addie Beck, excuse me, sorry, now I just saw it. They did have Addie Beck, and they lost in that one. But that's still a massive win for Horizon to start the season right there, a little bit of a statement win. But then they would drop a tough one to Rock Canyon 26-12, and then lose a 1-point game to Pomona 13-12, lose to Ralston Valley 33-7, play Mountain View pretty close, but end up losing 12-0. And so it took a little bit, but they would end up bouncing back with a nice win 7 days, pretty much a week later, against Aurora Central, who they beat 60-0, Mountain Range 39-14, Aurora West College Prep Academy, 59-0. Thornton 34-25 in a nice little win there, a rivalry game. And then they would keep it rolling. Eagle Ridge Academy 20-6. Poudre School District, that was a big win right here, 18-0. Skyview 40-6. Legacy, another playoff team, 26-14. Gateway 53-0 as they went on a pretty long winning streak there. And then they lost to North Glen in a close game, 7-0. But for the playoffs, would bounce back and eliminate Thunder Ridge 13-7 before falling to the eventual state champs of last year, Mountain Vista 46-14. Altogether, had a little bit of a rough stretch after that Cherry Creek statement win, but then would go on a tear for pretty much just about a month here to go ahead and get into the playoffs and do decent enough in their league. Now, let's look at this team. They had some players that really stepped up last year here who made a big impact for their squad. But before we do that, we should probably talk about the players that they are losing, starting with Shay Padilla here. She was a player who made our watch list last year and was their second leading receiver with 567 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns on 46 receptions for Horizon. And then defensively, contributed a decent amount, 10 flag balls and a pick. So there you go. That is a little bit of veteran, leadership that you are losing. But offensively, I think they also, the next big losses, probably Lila, I think it's Waffle. She had 232 yards and 4 touchdowns and only 19 receptions there. But she was also like their fourth leading receiver, so there is that. Looking on the defensive side of the ball here, they lose Addison French, who I want to say was another watch list player that we had, but she had 50 flag pulls for them last year. Also 9 sacks. She was their second leader in sacks. They also lose the third leader in sacks in Rajay Marshall, who had 5. Interception-wise, Addison French and Waffle each had 5 and 4 interceptions, respectively. But that was your third and fourth, interception leaders. And so, other than that, they pretty much return everyone. And this is why we are both high on Horizon going into the season. First off, we got to both watch them play in the Lace Up Summer Showdown that goes down. And so that was a great indicator here. And we were very impressed. this was a team that played Grandview very close in that summer showdown, it felt, but unfortunately came up just a little bit short here. And in our opinion, it starts with their quarterback, Sophia DeAnnie. She was a basketball player before she joined Flag here, but she has turned into one of the better quarterbacks in the state. Was very low-key last year, only threw for 1,218 yards because she did have a senior backup quarterback in Carrington Guevara who had 692 passing yards, 9 touchdowns to 11 picks. But Sophia DeAnnie really hopped in here and proved to be efficient with the playing time that she did get, 1,218 passing yards on 62.8 completion percentage here, which is pretty decent there. 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Also had 101 rushing yards there as well. And I mean, when you pull up her highlight reel, I mean, she could spin that football. She is probably a true backfield creator. She could also run the ball a little bit as well, but she's somebody that's going to extend the play, and then get you, right? And so she is I would say her game is very similar to Cherry Creek's quarterback of last season, Addie Beck, who, was also a basketball player, but, she's an athlete who could run around. She could get some yards, maybe not the best dual threat in the state, but still somebody that you got to keep an eye on and somebody who's going to be real tough to bring down, but she's going to kill you from behind the line of scrimmage and throw for a whole bunch of yards. She'll make a lot happen out of nothing. I believe she also had a pretty good club season with Lace Up as well, and so she should be due for a big season here. And so her alone, is a lot. There's not a lot of returning quarterbacks from last season going into this year, at least on the 5A level, when it comes to the contenders here. And so for her to be coming back for Horizon and be one of the top passers and I would say rushers as well, I mean, that's a big deal for sure. But she also returns her top top receiver and then her third leading receiver here as well. Madison Villada, only a sophomore last season, but had 63 receptions, 872 yards, and 13 receiving touchdowns 11 receiving touchdowns in 13 games, at least 13 games listed, that is. And that is very good. She has a lot of speed, agility. She's definitely somebody who can produce a lot more than what she did last year. And last year wasn't even bad. Those are pretty good numbers right there. But, she's definitely somebody who can bring in a lot more. On the defensive side of the ball as well, Villada had 42 flag pulls, 3 sacks, and 10 interceptions. 4 of those were against Mountain View as well, which is kind of crazy to think about because that's a nice program over there. But Madison Villada is one of the best two-way athletes in the entire state, looking to build on a nice sophomore year. And with her bringing back her quarterback, that's definitely a good thing. Now, they also bring back their third leading receiver, Engineer Harris here. She had 469 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns on only 35 receptions here. Very, very productive, even with not a lot of receptions. Defensively was also solid as well. 44 flag pulls, 3 sacks, and then 10 interceptions to go on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, she is tied with Villada in picks, and so they do bring back their 2 interception leaders. That's massive for this defense, but offensively, that is great production to be bringing back. You have a great quarterback in Sophia DeAnnie. You give her 2 of her top 4 receiving threats from last season. I think they will be just fine, if I'm being completely honest with you. This also is worth noting, but they bring back Nevaeh Stukas, who only had 13 receptions, but scored on 5 of those catches with 5 touchdowns, and then also had 184 receiving yards. She could definitely take a step forward and fill in some of that offensive production. And then defensively, I mean, they pretty much return everyone else on the starting defense. Even Medina, their leading flag pullers, coming back. By the way, also their sack leader, who had 15 sacks, she will be returning, which is massive. And then your 2 interception leaders in Villada and Harris will be back as well. And so defensively, they're not really losing that much. Addison French is a tough loss for sure. But other than that, I think they do return the majority of this defense. And you know what? Horizon has always been a low-key, very good flag football school. I remember during the pilot program that the Broncos put on, they had a couple players for sure. And, this continues for them. They've had a strong program, and, this is a culture of winning over there. At least it feels like it at this point. Last season, winning 11 games, that's definitely massive, and winning a playoff game as well. Now, there's no Mountain Vista, right? And they do have a quarterback. They have a good defense, some great two-way players. They have some skill players, and it's really not crazy to say that they are going to be at least a dark horse team this season. And so me and Gino both view them as a top 10 team. It is closer to the end here. Some of these tougher losses, I mean, I don't know how they lost to Rock Canyon. Rock Canyon has improved, don't get it twisted, and to be honest with you, Rock Canyon was a team I was considering putting in my top 10, but last year we kind of felt like that they should have beat him, so that's tough, and they probably maybe got caught off guard, and so that's on them as well. But that's a loss that I kind of looking back, and it's like, I don't know about that one, but then they lost to Pomona, which is a good 4A Pomona team, but still, that's a 1-point loss right there. Losing to Ralston Valley is more understandable. The Mountain View game, I mean, if you're going to play them that close, you also pick them off kind of a lot. You would probably hope for, a little bit more offensive production to win that game, so that's tough. And then, they go on that winning streak, and they really put it together there, and then they lose to Mountain Vista, but so did everyone else, right? And so there's a little bit of hesitation looking at some of those early struggles here, but the highs were pretty high for Horizon. I think going into this season, we just got to see if everyone could take a step forward. There is a little bit of offensive production that they got to fill out here. And, they got a nice little schedule here just looking at what they have for this upcoming season. They go ahead and play Rock Canyon, it looks like, to start. And that's going to be a nice game to look at. I think Rock Canyon is a team who does lose, way more than they do. I know they're losing their quarterback, which is kind of a big deal. They do have some other great pieces over there, though, but that'll kind of give us a good gauge. And then they play Legend, who is on this top 10 list, so there you go there. And then, they play a couple of teams. I mean, all the rest of the teams of their league in that 5A Northern League there. And so we'll see what happens. I think the big storyline, the bottom line, really, when it comes to Horizon is, offensively, how big of a step are they going to take forward, right? We know they're talented. We know defensively what they can do, but offensively, if they could take a step forward, that could mean the difference between finishing where they did last year, which I think is definitely in play in the second round of the playoffs, or making a deeper run, and maybe even making a Cinderella run to state, and I'm just putting that out there. We'll see. We'll definitely see, but, this was a team that really impressed us in the off-season play that we got to see, and is partially the reason why they are in our top 10 currently. So, call it recency bias, but they are right here at number 9 for us. Now at number 8 for us is Douglas County here. Last season, they had a very good season. I believe their best ever as far as I guess the history of the program. That's only been around for 2 years, like most, officially. And they went ahead and they won a program high 12 games, going 12-4 on the season. This is kind of how their season went here. Started off with a tough game against Mountain Vista, which they fell to 46-6, but then went on a pretty long winning streak here. They beat Vista Ridge 32-0, Mountain View 26-8, Eagle Crest 31-0, Cherokee Trail 47-0, Ponderosa 14-0. They beat Arapahoe 19-0. I was actually at that game. And then they beat Thunder Ridge 33-19. And then this team, the roll kind of stopped a little bit. They played Legend and lost 27-12. Not the worst loss, but, still a loss. But they bounced back with a win over Heritage, 31-12, and then lost a close one, a one-score game against Rock Canyon, 32-25, before going on another winning streak, beating Highlands Ranch 53-6, Regis Jesuit 40-6, Chaparral, they went ahead and beat 12-6 here, and then they would go ahead and play Cherry Creek. I believe this would be a non-playoff game. I thought it was a playoff game potentially, but it was not. They would go ahead and beat them 19-14 before falling to Grandview in a close one though, 13-0. So altogether, not a bad season here. They had their best one, to date so far here. And I will say this, Hailey Stanton actually ranked them at 7 in her rankings, which is why they were able to make our list right here at 8. Gino also had them at 8, so that is just about where they would end. And I'll talk about why their reasons here after I go over their season last year. But, Douglas County, they are losing some key players, starting with their dual threat quarterback, Jillian Cabral, who has committed to Nevada State and played very well in the NFL championships here. But last season at quarterback, 2,268 yards, 23 touchdowns to 20 picks, but also another 833 yards on the ground and 14 rushing touchdowns as their leading passer and rusher there. So that's obviously going to be tough to replace. In addition, she had 9 flagpoles on defense as well, so you got to keep that in mind. In addition, though, they do lose some other pieces on the offensive side of the ball, starting with the senior Vivian Yor, who led with 653 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns on 65 receptions. They also lose Maria Dikalenko, who I believe is playing college ball as well. She had 239 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, which was second on the team. Only 13 receptions, mind you, so that is going to be a tough replace there. Maria also was their lead flag puller with 96. The next closest would be 50 flag pulls behind her in Riley Covert. So they're going to be losing their lead flag puller. They also lose their second leader in sacks, and Francesca Ferraro here, who had 9 sacks here. And then Dikalenko also led in interceptions with 14. So losing some key pieces for sure, but not the most amount here. Staying on the defensive side here, they do return the majority of this defense here. I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're only losing their top flag puller out of their top 7. The rest they return here. Riley Covert is definitely somebody that's on our watch list, by the way, and is a next level player, but she's going to go ahead and take that step forward and be big time for this Douglas County team. Both on offense, I would expect her to have a little bit more going on there as a producer on the offensive side. And then defensively, second in flag posts with 44. You could definitely see a jump there for Covert on the defensive side of the ball. They also bring back, she got hurt last season, was not able to play, but they bring back Ellie Bowers, which is going to be a massive returner for them, coming off of, I want to say, a knee injury. She looks 100% now. Got to watch her play in the offseason a little bit. I've seen some of her clips, and so that was a tough loss for them last season at linebacker. Now she returns. Her and Covert are going to really lead this team that isn't losing much outside of Dikalenko and Ferraro. Other than that, they pretty much return everyone else, including their sack leader, who had 19 sacks last season, in Hailey Rice, and then their second interception leader and third interception leader in sophomore Sophie Griffith, who had 6, and then their junior Faith Turnbaugh, who had 4. Covert right behind them with 3, and then you also have have another sophomore in Kendall. Oh, never mind. I guess that is a senior. But other than that, I mean, you're bringing back the majority of your flag pullers. You're also bringing back a huge piece in your linebacker in Bowers, who did not play last season, so that'll be a big plus for this defense. Defensively, Douglas County should be fine. Offensively, though, there are going to be some things that they're going to have to figure out. They do bring back Covert, who had 275 yards and was their third receiver. But they also bring back Kenzie Jones, who was their second leader in receptions here with 33, and also second in yards with 307, and their leader in touchdowns with 7. So she'll be coming back. You have some receivers coming back. That's always a good thing here. But I think the biggest replace is your quarterback. You had a couple of players behind Cabral getting snaps here, including Chloe Lund, who had 311 yards and 3 touchdowns on the year as the backup here. Statistically, that is. But they're going to have to figure out how to replace all that production. Cabral pretty much accounted for almost 3,000 yards of offense between her passing and rushing yards. And so that'll be the big thing there. There are some receivers in place, but can a quarterback step in and take this team maybe not to the next level, but at least to the same level as last year? We will see about that. This is what Hailey had to say about them. She says DC has the potential to go 12-4 again with a great returning defense, such as Riley Covert, who have the second most flag pulls on the team. They have a few more defensive and offensive weapons that can keep their losses low and maintain their high ranking. And I agree there. And Gino is of the same thinking here. The defense is going to be the strength of this team here, but offensively, in my opinion, can they score enough to win games? We're just going to have to see what happens at the end of the day here. I think they can, but they got to find the right quarterback who could distribute the ball and get them going, or can be a productive dual threat like Cabral was and get them enough yards. But defensively, this is definitely a team that has a playoff defense, a defense that could get them in the playoffs, can win them a lot of close games here. But how deep they go definitely depends on everything else, like I just said. So there you go there. That is Douglas County right there at 8 for us. Now, our 7th team, according to our PMC rankings, is Valor Christian. I believe myself and Gino both ranked them in our top 10. I actually had them at 7, and same with Gino here. Hailey did not rank them here, wanting to see a little bit more from this Valor Christian team. But, let's go ahead and talk about this Valor Christian squad. First off, it's Valor, so you already know that they're always going to be good, and last season was no exception as they got to double-digit wins here. Not as good as their first season in sanctioned play, but still went 10-6 here and had a solid year. Their year started out on a win streak, beating Fountain Fort Carson 39-0, Doherty 26-0, Columbine 31-12, winning the Holy War in overtime, mind you, 13-12 against Regis, 43-14 against Chatfield, and then 27-21 against Denver South. And then they played Arvada West, and last season I did get to do the preview on Valor. Did not get to cover them as the season went on, but did talk about needing to get that monkey off their back, which was Arvada West, which was really just a team they could not beat. And unfortunately, in their first matchup, it continued. They lost them 21-13, despite having, I would say, an advantage seniority-wise. And so that's a tough loss, but then they go ahead and beat Columbine in a close game here, 31-26. And then they lose to Rock Canyon. That is a big loss right there, 48-21, a massive upset that really hurt the rankings here. They would bounce back with the 33-0 win over Chatfield, and then they would play Ralston Valley pretty close here, coming back to form, but would end up falling to them 13-12, and then they would just lose big time to Mountain Vista 54-6. I don't know if that's an accurate representation of how good this team was last season, but just a very uncharacteristic loss there. They would then lose to Arvada West again, 33-21, before beating TCA 33-21. Funny enough there. And then they would go ahead and play Ralston Valley, and they would beat them 13-6, and that would be a pretty big win here. If I am not mistaken, Never mind. I thought it would be a playoff game. I don't think it was a playoff game, but they would go ahead and beat Ralston Valley before pulling Cherry Creek and falling to Cherry Creek 40-32 here. And honestly, this was a little bit of an upset. I felt like because I was following the playoffs at the time, I felt like from an outside perspective, I really felt like Valor should have beat Cherry Creek here. I felt like they're the more complete team, but Cherry Creek, led by Addie Beck, in her last season, was able to get a big upset here. A massive upset in the playoffs, 40-32 in a shootout. And, that's just really not the type of quarterback you want to get a shootout in. And so a very unfortunate loss for them that would end a season full of ups and downs, really. They went on a pretty hot winning streak here. They would beat Ralston Valley, which I feel like was a pretty big accomplishment. And, they beat Columbine twice. They played Arvada West close. They beat TCA. But then you have losses like 48-21 to Rock Canyon. You have, these Arvada West losses, who I truly feel like they were better than last year, except for when they played them. Now, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to have sympathy about that. But I'm just saying, I felt like they definitely had a lot more depth there. Not that much more, apparently, but, a lot of depth for sure, and definitely a lot of talent. Regardless, though, they win their 10 games and they lose pretty early, it feels like, in the playoffs, at least early for them. And so that's unfortunate. I would imagine it's definitely a lot earlier than they wanted to, especially with the senior group here that they had, which was special. But, it is what it is. Let's look at some of the players they are losing. They lose their quarterback receiver duo in the Prinzos, Faith and Savannah Prinzo. I believe both going to Indiana Wesleyan. Faith threw for 4,330 yards. Very efficient at 74% here, 75%, 49 touchdowns, 14 picks, throwing to Savannah Prinzo, who had 1,313 yards and 21 touchdowns, who was their lead receiver. That group really, really, really produced for them. Savannah Prinzo also 39 flag pulls on the defensive side of the ball there and 3 interceptions. So, that's a duo, that's a twin duo that was a very productive for Valor these last couple years, and so that's going to be a real tough loss. On top of that, they do lose their second leading receiver in Sophia Barr, who had 79 receptions, 889 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And then defensively, Barr was their lead flag puller with 119 flag pulls, 26 of those going for loss, mind you, and then also had 12 sacks. And their leader in interceptions with 4, Prinzo right behind her with 3. So definitely tough there. Sorry, Savannah Prinzo with 3, and then Faith Prinzo right behind her with 2. So definitely a lot of production being lost on the offensive side of the ball, but also defensively. Like I said, a Bar was there. You also lose Reese Beezer, who had 70 flag poles and was a watch list player. You lose Jade Harry, who was a watch list player, had 24 sacks as their leader on that side of the ball here. Also 41 flag poles. You definitely lose a pretty decent amount of players here. A lot of players that were able to produce on both sides of the ball. I think as far as flag pullers go, they do lose their 4 of their top 7 flag pullers between Abar, Beezer, Harry, and Prinzo. Including your sack leader and your 2 interception leaders as well. So it's not just the offensive side of the ball that got replaced, but as well as the defensive side. But it is Valor Christian. Here are the key players coming back that, make us believe that Valor is still a top 10 team in 5A. First off, let's start with the offensive side of the football here. Yes, they do lose their top 2 receivers, but they bring back some interesting receiving options behind them. So they lose their top 2, but they bring back the 3rd, 4th, and 5th receiver in freshman Grace Marino, who was their 3rd. Last year she was a freshman. This year she'll be a sophomore. And then this year, Ellie Johnson, an incoming senior. And then you also have Bryn Hamill as well. Those 3 will be returning. Last season, They were super productive, even with the two seniors in front of them. Grace Marino, I mean, she's going to be the next great Valor star. You could go ahead and just book it right now. You know, she impressed as a true freshman in 9 games, had 742 yards and 9 touchdowns, while also having 37 flag pulls and 12 sacks on defense here. And then in the off season, she's really impressed. And, you know, in all the games that we saw her play, whether it's club or whether it was we did get to see them at this tournament that Doherty put on down in the Springs, you know, she's looked good. I think she's ready to take that next step forward here and be the next great Valor playmaker. In addition, you have Ellie Johnson, the 5'11 wide receiver going into her senior year. But last year, as a junior, brought in 735 yards and 11 touchdowns, contributed a little bit on the defense here. You know, she's a tall target that kind of helps give the offense a different look there. And then, of course, you have Bryn Hamble, who, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it briefly here. She was second in polls on the defensive side with 80, while contributing 477 yards and 4 touchdowns on offense. I mean, she's one of the few returners for this defense and a receiver who is going to look to take on a bigger role with the top 2 options in front of her gone here. Top 2 senior options in Prinzo and Abar gone. And so this trio here, if they could be productive with Faith Prinzo, granted it is Faith Prinzo, right? At the very least, they should be able to help out the next Valor quarterback who starts with them. And mind you, it is important to keep in mind, Faith Prinzo has been the starter for Valor for the last couple years. Obviously, the first 2 sanctioned years, and then I believe during the pilot program as well. So a Valor flag program without a Prinzo at the helm has not been seen at all. But I will say, in the preseason stuff that we were able to attend and watch, Valor does have a quarterback. We have no idea what her name is because they are wearing these practice jerseys and whatnot, but they have a quarterback option who, you know, could sling the ball pretty well. Now, can she do it at the same efficient level as a senior Faith Prinzo? I don't know. I think those are pretty high expectations, but with this receiving core, I don't think that is that crazy to think about. Now, defensively, they are losing a pretty decent amount here. They bring back Bryn Hamble, which is good. They also bring back Marino, who played on the defensive side, Sage Crooks, who had 38 flag pulls last season, linebacker Abby Brown for them. I think she made a watch list. She had 30 flag pulls as well. Look for her to go ahead and take a step forward. Defensively, they're going to still have to replace some players, a decent amount of their players as well. I think really we're probably more worried about the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side. But then again, this is Valor Christian we are talking about. You know, bottom line, Valor is just one of those schools that has a massive amount of talent, and in the Colorado flag football world has shown that they can reload arguably the fastest compared to other programs in the state. That potential receiving core of Marino, Hamble, and Johnson, I think, will help any quarterback that has to fill the shoes of Prinzo. But I will say, although I don't know their name, saying it again, I don't know her name, there is a quarterback that's been kind of tearing it up for them in the summer off season, and doesn't just look like a system quarterback here, mind you. Can definitely make some big plays on her own, which is something to look out for. I think there could be some growing pains offensively for Valor, but they will lean on this experienced receiving core. Defensively, though, you are going to see a lot of new faces. It may take a minute for it to all click together, but I don't think it's that crazy to think that they can make a run if everything clicks in time. And they do got time, mind you. I think for a minute here, just looking at their schedule, they're going to be able to get away with just having their returning talent come back. Now, it doesn't mean they play an easy schedule by any means. You have teams like Ralston Valley, Arvada West there, multiple times, mind you. But it does look like, I will say, it does look like that they are going to potentially play some out-of-state teams at the very end of the season before the playoffs. Currently, they have Central from Alabama, who was undefeated last year, on their schedule for October 10th. And then they have Columbus from Georgia scheduled here. Let's go ahead and see the record of Columbus from last season. They were 22-2, so a very good team. Looking to play some out-of-state teams, they would be the first ones to do that. And so, they got some tough teams ahead here, not only in-state but out-of-state. But at the same time, this is Valor we're talking about. They got some proven talent, too, who's going to carry them. I mean, I'm looking at teams, the other teams on this schedule here, and I think there are definitely squads that they should be able to win even without the experience. Now, mind you, they've been putting in this work in the offseason. They've been in plenty of scrimmages. So it's really just fall experience that they are lacking, if we're being completely honest with you. But like I said, it's Valor Christian. You kind of got to give them the benefit of the doubt here when it comes to sports and programs like that. And on top of that, I mean, they have players that have looked really good. Grace Marino has looked really good in the offseason. Their backup quarterback from last year, quarterback now this year, has looked really good as well. Abby Brown, right? She's somebody who made our watch list. You have Bryn Hamel and Ellie Johnson, who are both coming back as well. They just have talent that other teams don't have. Now, it may be a bumpy ride to start, but if they get through the season and they continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger, I do think the sky's the limit. And then playing some of these better teams, especially out of state, is only going to push them to be better. And, as of late, Valor, at least as far as flag football has went, I guess a little bit of boys football if you really want to get into that, but as far as flag football has went, maybe has not went as far as they wanted to. Actually, I know that for a fact they haven't went as far as they wanted to, which would be state. They've gotten close. I believe 2 years ago they were in the semis. This last year they fell short of that even. That's just not the Valor standard, right? Eventually they're going to make a run here. Now, whether it's going to be this year or maybe next year, we'll see. But don't be surprised if they're a top 10 team, and I don't think anybody really is. All right, now moving on, I will say this, between the 6th and 7th spot, there is kind of a big point differential, and then these next couple of teams are all within 5 points of each other, or 6 points of each other. It is 5 points of each other. So it's super close here as far as voting goes. But at number 6 is Ralston Valley. Me and Gino had them ranked pretty similarly. I had them ranked at 6 there. But I will say Hailey actually had Ralston Valley at number 1 in her preseason rankings. Now, before we go into all that, let's go ahead and talk about last season here. So last season went 14-4 here. Shout out our guy, Coach Johnson, over there. And they had a pretty decent season. Started out with a win over New Team Golden, fell to Cherry Creek by a score, but then bounced back and went on a winning streak, beating Arvada West, which is a big one. I don't know if they beat them before up to that point, but they go ahead and beat them 20-18. They beat Heritage 39-0, Horizon 33-7, Chatfield 38-0. Northfield was a little bit closer, but still a win, 18-16. They then take care of Columbine 48-6. Arvada West, the second time they play them in another close one, and this time they fall to them 13-12, but bounce back with a 20-0 win over Arapahoe in the rain. A tough 13-12 win over Valor, a 42-6 win over Dakota Ridge, 40-12 over Chatfield, 18-6 over Columbine. Then they would lose to Valor, but this is at the end of the season here, 13-6 here, but has played really good football pretty much leading up to this point. I want to say, I could be wrong. Let me double check this. I wanted to say they won their league, but it does say second right here. And I think it is because, well, they split with Arvada West, so there is that as well. But either way, near the top of their league once more here, and still a great regular season, just looking at the teams they beat. Now in the playoffs, they go ahead and continue to roll here. They beat Chatfield 29-6. They go ahead and move on and get a scare by Cherry Creek, but they go ahead and beat them by 2 here or sorry, by 1 here, 26-25, and then they fall to Mountain Vista, who obviously went on and won state. So it's not like the worst thing, obviously, at all. But they did end up losing to the defending state champs in Mountain Vista. And I want to say, yeah, that was the semis, too. So that's the deepest Ralston Valley has been, at least in the sanctioned era. And so definitely improvement from last year. And, I mean, compared to other teams who played against Mountain Vista, I mean, they played Mountain Vista closer than Legend did, I think. So that is something to be proud of for sure here. And actually, let me see here. Now that I'm looking at it, I think Grandview was the only one that played them semi-close, but that's within a point right there. Other than that, I mean, Ralston Valley took their best shot at Mountain Vista, and I don't think they could really be mad about that when all is said and done at the end of the day. I mean, obviously, you want to go to state, though, which is unfortunate, and you know, could be argued if you were on the other side, they would have went to state. But all that being said, a year later, this is where they stand. They do lose some pretty big pieces here all over their team, starting with their quarterback, Kaylin Corcus, taking over. This was her first full year as a starter at 3,773 yards, 53 touchdowns to 23 interceptions here. I mean, Ralston Valley has never really struggled with finding a productive quarterback, and Corcus continued that this year. And so that's going to be a tough quarterback to replace here, just because of the experience, but maybe not impossible. I think they do lose a really big piece here. A couple other big pieces, though, to go with that, including Ashlyn Callahan, who was arguably the MVP from last season, one of the best players in the entire state. I believe now playing soccer at UNCO. Shout out Northern Colorado, Go Bears. And she's going to do her thing over there. She's going to be amazing. But when she played flag football, was an absolute monster. Leading rusher, leading receiver for Ralston Valley here. 377 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. And 1,705 receiving yards and 26 receiving touchdowns on 138 receptions. On top of that, defensively, Ashlyn Callahan was an absolute monster as well at safety. 62 flag pulls, and then was their interception leader with 15. So definitely tough here. I don't think it's crazy to say that, she was their best player, all-around player from last season, but that's going to be a real tough loss to replace here just because of how special she was, right? But to be fair, Ralston Valley has had its share of special wide receivers. And then last but not least here, they are losing Emma O'Connor, who is a big part of this team here. Mostly the defense, but offensively also contributed 48 receptions, 314 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Defensively, though, 76 flag pulls, 3 picks, and a sack. I believe playing a linebacker. Yep, linebacker for them. She was their third leader in flag pulls. Callahan was 4th in flag pulls, by the way. And so some tough players to replace. You lose your starting quarterback, you lose your best player, you lose a solid, probably your captain, I would say. I want to say she was maybe your captain, or, one of your more experienced defensive players in Emma O'Connor. With all that being said, even though they are losing that much, they're really only losing 3 of their top 10 flag pullers, though, including their leader in picks. But even though they're losing all that, they do return a decent amount here. Pretty decent amount. And let's start with the defensive side of the football. They bring back here, I think it's, excuse me if I say this wrong here, but it's Savi Doherty. She was second in interceptions with 4. Their lead flag puller with 102. Second in sacks with 11. Also, I think statistically was their third quarterback. I mean, the only player on this roster that threw the ball on varsity last season. So there is that. Also had 8 receptions and a couple of yards here. But she's going to be returning as a leader of this defense. That's big time. They also bring back their starting rusher here, their most productive one, who's only going to be a junior this year, in Bailey Cummings, who had 32 sacks last season, as well as 48 flag pulls, being super productive. They bring back Shelby Colosimo here, who had 8 sacks on the defense, but offensively, now we're going over to the offensive side of the ball, was big time as well. I think she was second to Callahan, in receiving yards, and was only a sophomore last season, will now be a junior this year, but she had 932 yards and 10 touchdowns last season on 106 receptions. She will be back and will help whatever quarterback steps into Kaylin Corcus's old role. And then you also bring back Lily Lombardi here. Both of those players, Colosimo and Lombardi, have made our watch list. I believe I got to see Lombardi at a lace-up junior, either workout or tryout here, and she really impressed. She looked really good there. But 612 yards and 13 touchdowns last season. I think she is due for a breakout season here. She's a very explosive athlete, and so I'm excited to get to watch her play. But, at the end of the day, you do bring back the majority of your defense. A lot of those flag poles are coming back. You bring back your rushers as well in Cummins, Doherty, and Colosimo. Also Mraz, who was a sophomore last season and got 6 sacks, Liliana Mraz. So that's a big time. As far as interceptions go, outside of Callahan and O'Connor, you bring back Doherty as well as the incoming junior Hailey Rabbit as well. So not too bad. I mean, defensively, they're going to be pretty whole here. That rush is going to be nice. I could definitely say that the rush is going to be nice because it's Ralston Valley. You already know that they're going to have some DB that's going to take advantage of all that as well and get some pretty easy interceptions because of that rush, which I would say Ralston Valley has always had some pretty decent rushers or just some pretty decent defensive players in general. So not really worried about the defensive side. Offensively, though, I mean, yeah, they lose their quarterback and their top producer, but they do bring back 2 players in Colosimo and Lombardi, who alone is a lot more firepower than a lot of other teams could afford. And so bottom line, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they replace Corcus. But this is Ralston Valley we're talking about. Coach Johnson has helped this team take a massive leap last year, and it's hard to not imagine them in some sort of contention. While losing Callahan is no joke, they do return some great talent, like I said, in both Colosimo and Lombardi, who can be due for true breakout seasons. Both of them, not just one, but both of them I think could be over 1,000 yards. This is my prediction here. Both over 1,000 yards and probably double-digit touchdowns here this next season. Would not be surprised at all at that. Probably over 1,200 each and over 10 touchdowns. We're probably looking at 12 if we're being realistic there. And I think that is super, super possible with whoever plays quarterback there, even if it's just average for now. Now, if it's above average, you could definitely see those numbers be above that as well, but they got some talent over there. Ralston has not shown any signs of having issues replacing their talent either. I know it's a small, time period that we've been watching them play flag football, but it feels like year after year they got playmaker after playmaker. Right? And then defensively, they bring back some great rushers who were not only productive last year, but dominant, in addition to a good linebacker group. I mean, this RV defense should be very good. I think the real question is if they will have a quarterback who can step up and play at a high level like they have had before. And, they've done it before, too. They've done it before, too. Before Callahan, they had a quarterback before her who was very good. Before Corcus, they had a quarterback before her who was very good, very productive in their system before there was a quarterback change at roughly mid-season with Zoe Zoll being out and Corcus being in. And so I feel like if they could handle that, they could handle a full off season with a brand new quarterback. But we'll see. Now, Gino obviously feels the same. He got to watch Lily Lombardi work out as well. We're both very high on her as a prospect. But Hailey really liked Ralston Valley. She had the number one in her preseason rankings, and she had this to say. They have a serious chance of taking over the division. I think she means classification, but you know what she means. They had a pretty young team last year and can keep building their knowledge and experience this year. They had quite a top performers that are returning, such as quite a few top performers returning, such as upcoming junior Shelby Colosimo, who had the second most receiving yards as well as the most sacks last season. Her paired with upcoming senior Savi Doherty taking over at quarterback potentially and possibly leading the team in flagpoles, again, can take this team places. Also, looking at their 10-spot jump from number 10 to last year's number 3 spot only makes me more confident about their 5A takeover. And honestly, I see it. Defensively, I think they're going to have the defense. Offensively, we like the firepower they have coming back. I'm sure other players will step up to fill out the rest of that receiving core. I think the only question really is quarterback, right? There are some quarterbacks we got to watch in the offseason. We did not really get to see Ralston Valley's quarterback, at least I don't think so, play in the offseason. So, that does become a question. I mean, they do play in a tougher league, so it's not going to be cake at all. There will be some easier games, but there's probably going to be some growing pains, if we're going to be completely honest. I mean, right now, they're listed to play Mountain Vista, who's also replacing a quarterback situation, a pretty massive one. Same with Cherry Creek, too, and Legend later on in that same month. So, there could be a little bit of growing pains, but if they're going to be playing teams, good teams, without their own quarterbacks, I think it kind of evens out. And when you really look at it, it's not like they're going to go like 0-5 in that stretch. That would be really surprising. If anything, looking at this August stretch of Mountain Vista, Cherry Creek, Green Mountain, Legend, Columbine, Valor, and then Arvada West at the end there, they probably split that, which is insane to say considering this is basically a playoff schedule right here. Maybe a little bit out of order, but it's basically a playoff schedule when we are looking at this. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how this new quarterback, how this new offense looks going into this year. But with Ralston Valley, it's just so hard to doubt them. And so I think for obvious reasons right now, they are definitely in our top 10. But I think whether they rise or not is going to really depend on how that quarterback plays. All right, now moving on to our top 5. Starting at 5 here, we have Arvada West, who is exactly 1 point ahead of Ralston Valley in our PMC rankings here. I had Arvada West at 5. I know Gino had them in a similar spot here, maybe a little higher. Actually, just kidding. Gino had them right at 5, same as me. Hailey had them at 2, and I think there's really good reason for why. But let's talk about last season here. So last season, Arvada West went 13-3. And it was technically a rebuilding year after the Sailor, Swanson, Sarah Walker era, Molly Shellpepper era as well, by the way. Let me go ahead, my bad. Let me give you some credit as well, Molly. It was your era too. You killed it. But anyways, a rebuilding year, apparently. And they still did great. 13-3 here. This is how their season went. Beat Mullen 33-6. Lost a close one to Ralston Valley 20-18. And then lost to Mountain Vista. Still in a close game though, 27-6. Then after that, they would go on a winning streak here pretty much all the way until they would not lose another game until the playoffs, which is insane. They had beat Monarch 52-0, North Glen 25-0, Columbine 33-0, Valor Christian in a close one, but still beat 21-13, Chatfield 32-20, avenged their loss to Ralston Valley to win 13-12, Columbine 53-0, Valor 33-21, Regis Groff 43-7, Green Mountain they beat in overtime 20-14, and then Chatfield they beat 49-7. I believe they did end up winning their league as well once again, so that was big time. In the playoffs, they would go ahead and beat North Glen 38-0 before falling to Chaparral 20-0 here in the believe this was the quarterfinals, which, not even that bad of a loss when all was said and done here. Looking at Arvada West and some of the players they do graduate some key players, mind you. They lose Lily McReynolds, who I'm pretty sure is playing college flag football at, I want to say Indiana Wesleyan. I could be wrong though. But she's a next level player. Was their lead receiver with 1,134 yards and 14 touchdowns. They also lose Santana Pena, who I know is going to Indiana Wesleyan, 931 yards and 18 touchdowns. Super underrated, by the way. Well, maybe properly rated because she's playing college flag, but a great receiver for them. They lose Alyssa Alberts, who is their fourth leading receiver. 540 yards in 3 touchdowns. Was also fifth in flag polls as well for them, which is kind of a big deal, with 36 flag polls. And then I want to say also had 2 sacks, which is not nothing to go ahead to add to that. And then so pretty much those are all the key seniors that are graduating. They do lose Aubrey Cespedes as well, who's been on this roster for a while, and has contributed to this team. But they do lose a player to not the transfer portal, but to transfer. And it is one of the first times we are hearing of a transfer here, not for like flag football, but just in general, that really affects the flag football world, at least here in Colorado. And that is Harper Tillman. She's been a starter for them since a freshman. Last year had a great year, was their leader in flag poles with 84. She is going to be playing for Cherry Creek. At least that is what we have been informed here, and I'm pretty sure given permission to say that's been public knowledge for a little bit now. Her school has been changed to Cherry Creek on our watch list, so there you go. And that's going to be a tough loss, not going to lie. I mean, she was one of the few young starters from that from that state championship appearance team 2 years ago. And so that's kind of a tough loss to go as well. But other than that, I mean, they do lose a decent chunk of their receiving core. But defensively, this team is pretty much whole. They're returning a lot of the same players. And then offensively, I mean, let's talk about the player that, they returned that we all love her game, and we think that she could be the next great flag football player. But let's talk about the quarterback. Emerson Drake last season as a sophomore took over and, had ups and downs, threw for 3,628 yards, 62 completion percentage here, but 45 touchdowns to 29 interceptions, kind of a lot of picks. Ran for 243 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns here. I mean, she is a strong arm quarterback who could make some throws and I think could take a step forward in her development here. I think there were times she got a little bit too gunslingery last season. Not many, but just a couple, right? And she was a young quarterback, right? She was an underclassman. She is, and this is worth noting, one of the few returning quarterbacks in 5A out of all the top 10 teams, right? And she's super talented, and we know what Arvada West is all about. And so it's really hard to not project her as one of the top quarterbacks in the state this next season. She definitely should be. And, losing her receiving core is pretty tough here. You lose your top 2. Really, you lose actually 4 out of your top 5. But she does bring back a receiver here in Alexis Mays, who made our watch list, by the way. She was her favorite target, had 111 receptions, which led the team. Also 774 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. So it's not like she is without a receiver that she just doesn't have chemistry with, right? And that's a big one right there, too. So she does bring back Alexis Mays. That's big time. Because it is Arvada West, you kind of just trust that they're going to go ahead and reload on the talent, and you have some other players that step up and take on the roles that McReynolds, Pena, and Alberts and Cespedes were able to do last season. And they got plenty of young talent to do that for sure. But to have a quarterback and to have a receiver returning from last year, those two things are still pretty big. Those are things that a lot of other teams don't have. They don't have a top 3 receiver coming back. They don't have a quarterback quarterback coming back, which does matter at the end of the day. And so, because they do, that definitely gives us hope about this offense that Arvada West has. Now, defensively, they return a lot. They lose Alyssa Alberts, they lose Harper Tillman, yes, but they do return a number of players who are on our watch list here. They return Alex Anto, who, by the way, had a massive showing in the NFL Flag Championships just a couple weeks ago. She's already showing that she's ready to be one of the top rushers in the state, if not the entire country. That is what we are talking about. Not just the state, but the entire country. She had 23 sacks last season. Expect that to go up. Absolutely. And then probably also getting more snaps on the offensive side of the ball too. So expect her to continue to do her thing. Rushing wise, while we're talking about the defense though, they also bring back Katie Hufford, who had 10 sacks last season. They bring back a player who was a freshman last year in Remy Erickson, who had 5 sacks last season. That rushing squad is going to be very dangerous and complete here. And it really starts with them. But it's not just them. I mean, you look at the interception leaders they bring back in Jocelyn Harris, Grace, I think it's Shield, Hadley, is it Pugliese, I want to say? That trio combined for 30 interceptions last year, and they all returned. And so they're going to help fill out the rest of this defense here. But they got a lot of players that are returning who were very productive last season. Now, one last player I do want to shout out is Vivian Brenkert here. She has been a player that, I mean, we've been aware of for a while. She's played with Lace Up for a very long time, since middle school, and I kind of feel like she's poised for a breakout here. Had some nice contributions last year as a freshman, going into her sophomore year. She could be another player that really contributes to definitely the defensive side, but potentially the offensive side of the ball as well. And so Arvada West, I mean, they got good coaching. They got a lot of talent coming up. This defense is going to be tough to beat. Give them another year playing together. It's going to be tough to stop. I'm going to say that right now. It's going to be tough to stop. Pair that with a quarterback who's very talented and bringing back one of her top receiving options. It is really hard to not like this Arvada West team. Now, here's the bottom line. This Arvada West team, they lose some key players who are going on to play college ball, as well as Harper Tillman to Cherry Creek. But, like I said, they return a quarterback, a defense that looks elite last year, looking to be elite this year. I think the big question, though, comes on the offensive side of the ball. Can Emerson Drake take a step forward despite losing so many key receivers? Even with those seniors last year, they did get blanketed by Chaparral 20-0. So really, it's going to be up to the offense on whether they can produce enough to win games that their defense will put them in position to win. I think there's no doubt that if it comes down to it, the defense will give them a chance to get the ball at the end of the game. I think the bigger question is, are they going to score? Now, this is what Hailey Stanton had to say about Arvada West. She had them ranked number 2 in her preseason rankings for this upcoming season, and she said this Arvada West team was so young last year, but produced big numbers. I think with how young they are and the experience they now have, and only getting knocked down from number 2 to number 4 last year, I think they're going to come back for that number 2 spot, if not the top spot, with Alexis Mays leading in receiving yards going into her senior year, and Emerson Drake leading in passing and rushing yards going into her junior year. They can definitely shake up the rankings. Defensively, if upcoming senior Alex Santo could get more than 20 sacks again and disrupt the offense, and Jocelyn Harris gets more than 14 picks, that team can really thrive on both sides of the ball. And yeah, I absolutely agree with that here. I think Arvada West, more or less, is a little bit of a sleeper. I think for me, them finishing in the quarters was tough, especially that way to Chaparral. That's definitely a tough way to go. And so I'm really interested to see if they can do more, right? Do more and avenge that to make a deep playoff run, because they're going to need to beat one of these teams that, just being honest, are currently ranked in front of them. I have no doubt they could beat most teams in the state, but can they beat one of these teams in front of them to make a run at state? We will see. I don't think it's that crazy to say that they can, but they do got some work to do on the offensive side, so we'll see how that looks. Defensively, I expect them to be elite. It's just going to come down to whether the offense can capitalize or not. All right, now moving on to number 4, we have Mountain Vista, and I'm just going to be honest, the votes were kind of all over the place. I actually had them ranked right at number 4. Gino has Mountain Vista at number 1, and I'm just going to say what he wanted me to say for him. I mean, they've been undefeated the last 2 years. I think if you're 38-0, which is what they are right now, or something like that, you kind of got to give them the benefit of the doubt. And so for him, they're number 1 until they lose. So there's that. And then Hailey has Mountain Vista at 6 here, just a little bit lower. So kind of all over the place when talking about Mountain Vista. This is a little bit of a polarizing team here going into this season. Now, last season, let's talk about it. They were dominant. And like I said, couldn't cover them. I want to say we did their season preview. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But we've been known what Ariana Aki's about and what this Mountain Vista team's about here. I did go to state to actually watch them play Legend, and it doesn't look like much changed from there. But, Mountain Vista last season, what's more to say, 19-0. They have not lost ever since flag football has been sanctioned. The Ariana Aki era has been as successful as you could want. I mean, it's a clean record. It's undefeated. There are very few football players, just not flag, but just in general, boys as well, that have went undefeated in their career. I think that straight up that comes to mind, obviously you have Ariana Aki, but then you also have Kyler Murray over at Texas who went undefeated in a career. And that is special. That should be celebrated. Absolutely. And so let's go ahead and celebrate it right now. These are the teams they beat: Doherty, Douglas County, Arapahoe, Cherry Creek, Arvada West, Pondo, Thunder Ridge, Chaparral, Legend in the regular season, Cherokee Trail, Rock Canyon, Valor, Regis, Heritage, Highlands Ranch, Horizon was a playoff game. That was their first playoff game. None of these are really close, by the way. I think Arvada West was the only team to be within 3 scores of them in the regular season. So they're kind of just rolling here. And it kind of continues in the playoffs. They beat Horizon 46-14. Grandview's a little bit closer, 26-7. Ralston Valley a little bit closer, 40-19. And then they beat Legend 48-26 here. And they win again. Now, the big difference between this team, this upcoming season, and last year's team, I think it's pretty obvious. It's the players that they had, starting with Ariana Aki, the GOAT as of right now, as far as Colorado girls high school flag football went. Jesus, these numbers. 4,545 passing yards, 89 touchdowns and 9 picks, 1,526 rushing yards, 22 rushing touchdowns here. Also 102 flagpoles. She was their second leader in flagpoles this last season, 4 sacks as well. That's good for third. And then also 10 interceptions. That's good. Jesus Christ, that's good for third. I think she top 3 in every category here except for receiving. Yeah, that's wild. So, yeah, there you go there. The best to ever do it, she's gone now. This team's going to look different here. Not to, say her job wasn't important, but they also lose another legend in Braylon Looney here. In my opinion, one of the best two-way players of all time and deserves a whole bunch of love. Last season was their lead receiver with 1,235 yards and 107 receptions and 33 touchdowns, leading the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Defensively, also led with 116 flagpoles right there. Also had 10 sacks, their second leader in sacks, and then their fourth interception leader, or co-fourth, with 5 for them as well. So another player who was super productive and helped set the foundation for this Mountain Vista dynasty. And then you got a whole bunch of other players that they're losing as well. Addison Devlin's been around for a while. Caitlin Jenkins as well. Devlin was a key receiver for them. I believe she was their fourth leading receiver with 590 yards and still 13 touchdowns. Jenkins was a top 4 flag puller for them. But not too much more that they're missing from the defensive side. They are missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4 of their top 7 flag pullers. but they pretty much return everyone else, though, which is a good thing. And so let's talk about the players they do replace, because it's not just us giving them the benefit of the doubt. Let's be completely real there. Starting on the offensive side of the ball, they bring back one of the best two-way players, really, when we're talking about it in Hailey, 73 receptions, 1,054 yards, 17 touchdowns as their second leading receiver. Also third in polls and their leader in interceptions last season. She is a stud. She's a great flag football player. She's for sure a college football player. I mean, I was very impressed with her film. She showed out in the state championship game as well. She is arguably, outside of Aki and Looney, the best receiver that they bring back. I do think she was potentially better than some of those receivers on that first state championship team here. And so now she returns for her senior year. It's really hard to imagine that she's not productive. Just being honest. They also bring back another great two-way player in Lauren Culebro, who is going to be an incoming senior as well. Last season was their third leading receiver with 670 yards and 9 touchdowns. Also fifth in polls and second in interceptions. Another great two-way player who I think is a Sherlock as a college flag football player, if that's something she wants to do. And right there you have two of the best two-way players in the state, in my opinion. They also bring back Harper Hoffmore, their fifth leading receiver, as a freshman, and then she also had 42 receptions, 545 yards, and 10 touchdowns on offense. And then defensively, also had she was sixth in flag poles, and then was their leader in sacks with 14. So they do return a key rusher there, and having a good pass rush is always important. It's arguably one of the positions that you could have in flag football that helps cover the mistakes of everyone else, especially an inexperienced team. Now they also bring back Riley McMeekin. This is one player I wanted to highlight here. I believe she made our watch list as a DB. One of the returners for this defense. She's poised for a breakout season, in my opinion. They will rely on the experienced players here, but I felt like Riley McMeekin has had a really good offseason so far. Whenever I've been able to watch her, she's been balling out. She's been doing her thing. So I am high on her. I'm just going to put that out there. And then I do want to mention, I believe it's kind of looking like Peyton Marr is going to be the next quarterback for Mountain Vista. Will be entering her junior year, so we'll see how that goes. But in limited time, she looked pretty good, and I know some other people have said she's looked really good in off-season stuff as well. So, I'm not saying she's going to completely replace Ariana Aki. I mean, who can, right? But when it comes down to Mountain Vista, offensively, I mean, this is a team that scores, just straight up, right? Whatever means necessary. They got a great coaching staff over there, an experienced coaching staff. On top of some of the best two-way players in the state in Besh and Culebro, you have some other defensive players like Hoffmeyer and McMeekin who will be out there as well. I mean, bottom line, this team did not lose the most amount of players that it possibly could. It certainly lost key pieces, though. Now, if there was a team that was going to receive the benefit of the doubt, it would be this one. Besh, Culebro, and Hoffmeyer is a great group of two-way players to work with. They're all going to shine this season, as well as a potential breakout star in McMeekin. I think the big question is if they can get good quarterback play from whoever eventually replaces Aki. During the Broncos pilot, they were able to get some good quarterback options outside of Aki. Like, there was a time where I felt like Addison Devlin was about to be the starter for Mountain Vista, and I felt like they could win state with her. They also have a coach in Garrett Looney, who is known for his quarterback development and their production over there at Mountain Vista. I mean, that history is very well documented. Looking at Austin Madreski, looking at Marquise now, looking at Ariana Aki, looking even at the backup quarterbacks they had who were still pretty good. I felt like they could have started for other teams. I'm really not worried about the quarterback position for Mountain Vista. It is just unproven, though. And so All of these things, plus the undefeated record over 2 years, makes it hard to doubt that Mountain Vista won't hang around in this top 5, at the very least, top 10 position here. Now, this is what Hailey had to say about Mountain Vista, who she had at 6. They have a good scheme that's different to other offenses that makes them more efficient, such as an empty. It increases defense's responsibility, and not many teams are used to covering that offensive scheme. Although Aki graduated last year's second string, Peyton Barr was able to get good experience last season and has potential to continue their legacy. Similar for defense, I think they have the weapons such as sophomore Harper Hoffmeyer, who had 14 sacks last season, as well as seniors and interception leaders Kaylee Besh and Lauren Culebro that can defensively win championships. I just think with 8 seniors leaving, 1 being the quarterback, the team will flow differently, giving other teams a chance to move up in the rankings. And I agree. I think, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, partially because we're media, right? But when you look at it from a pure football perspective, it is unrealistic to believe that it's going to be smooth sailing for Mountain Vista like it was the last 2 years. Very unrealistic. There's a lot of work that has to be put in. It may not look completely pretty, but I think the bottom line is, how pretty could it look by playoffs? And I think it could look pretty good. And so that is why Mountain Vista is currently sitting at number 4 in our rankings, and why most of us have them near number 5 or top 5 at the very least here. It's just hard to give this team, not give this team the benefit of the doubt. They're a talented squad. They've proven it. They've proven they have depth. Last year, because I'm also going to put this out there as well, we said it. I think other people said it as well. There were some questions about how they would replace the receiving core. Yes, they brought back Aki. Yes, they brought back Looney, but they did lose a decent chunk of their receiving core. Obviously, they're able to replace that pretty well to go ahead and go undefeated and win another championship. Now, this time they got to replace Aki and Looney. We're going to see real quick if that is going to be as easy a replacement. But at the very least, we give them the benefit of the doubt to be in the top 5, if not the top 10 at the very least. Now, at number 3 is actually a team that I personally have at number 1, and that is Grandview here. Gino has them ranked at number 4, and then Hailey has them ranked at number 5. I'll tell you why I have them at number 1 here in a little bit. But before we do all of that, let's talk about last season for Grandview flag football. Last year, went 13-4 here, having a good regular season. They would actually win the Centennial League there, so being the league champs. And then they would go ahead and lose to Mountain Vista in the playoffs here, and that would end their season. So not a bad year at all. Definitely improvement from the previous year. And just looking at this Grandview team, they don't really lose a whole bunch. I think their biggest loss statistically is Abby Kirkpatrick. Last year had 558 rushing yards there as one of their leading rushers, and a rushing touchdown to go with that. On top of that, she was their leading rusher, so there you go. And she was also their leading receiver with 847 receiving yards on 93 receptions and 16 touchdowns. So that's definitely a tough blow for Grandview, just looking at their offense here. They also lose a senior in Aaliyah Zetek, I want to say, who had 21 receptions for 360 yards and 8 touchdowns. But that's as far as the losses go on the offensive side on the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, they keep both their top 7 flag pullers. They keep their sack leaders. They keep their interception leaders as well. This Grandview team is pretty much whole, coming right back here. Let's talk about the key players, starting with the defense. Let's start with the defense for this Grandview team. They bring back their top 9 flag pullers, as well as their top 4 leaders in sacks and interceptions here. Just going Just right off the bat here, talking about Jaden Schaub, I think it's Schwabauer. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong here, but Schwabauer, I mean, she's made our PMC watch list, but as a sophomore, 89 flag pulls, also 40 sacks as well. She's a big-time player that's going to be coming back for them. They also bring back Anaya Coleman, who had 8 interceptions last year, and also has a college offer too. Congrats to her. Did not put her on our watch list, but she definitely should be on there, so I'm going to go ahead and admit to that, but she's a college level player who is coming back. That's a big part of that defense. They also bring back Colette Escobar, who was their second leader in sacks with 18, so that's pretty big time as well. She also had 60 flag pulls. Nia Coleman, by the way, had 74 flag pulls. And then last but not least, they also bring back Meta Wakalanji here. Shout out the Wakalanji family. This is like the third Wakalanji sibling that we've covered. Obviously, covering Mukende and Mulamba here as well. But shout out those boys and shout out Meta. She's a great linebacker. Got to watch her in the preseason here last a couple weeks ago in the Lace Up Summer Showdown. And she's a tough physical linebacker. In my opinion, she's a next level linebacker, like a college linebacker if she wanted to be. But only entering her junior year, so super young obviously as well. I mean, this is a defense led by that group that is physical and productive and strong and athletic. They match up pretty much with any offense here, and they have had a year of experience under their belts going into another year together. And honestly, that's all but mentioning Brooke Sullivan, who is returning to this defense with the 50 flag pulls and their leader in interceptions with 18. The second year, by the way, she's had 18 interceptions. It could be argued that she's the crown jewel of this defense, but in truth, this defense is extremely tough. In my opinion, and it could be recency bias, but in my opinion, I do think they are the number one defense in the state. Whether it's 5A, whether it's 4A, I just think they are that good. They return the rushers. They have a great secondary, a great linebacking core over there as well. This Grandview defense is like that. I see almost an entire lineup. There's probably an argument that the entire starting lineup is college level, right? Like all those players could play on the college level and start for a lot of teams around the country. That is how good this team is. I love the physicality they play with. They're a very talented team. Now, offensively, this Grandview team is definitely creative. They bring back Brooke Sullivan, who was their lead passer, 2,500 yards, 32 touchdowns, 18 picks. She took a step forward as a passer last season. Also had 99 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. But she also had 30 receptions for 383 yards and 5 touchdowns. Brooke Sullivan could play anywhere on the football field, offense and defense. Now, where they decide she's the most impactful, it's up to Grandview. It really depends. I think as a quarterback, she's definitely talented enough to, make a deep playoff run. But I also understand if you want to have another sure option at receiver, she could be the best receiver in 5A if given the touches, right? But really, when you have a player like Brooke Sullivan, especially in the flag football world, you use her in multiple ways. She is the offensive weapon. And so if you could feed her the ball, whether it's a quarterback, whether it's a receiver or whatever, she is going to produce for this team. Just think of an offensive engine, and that is Brooke Sullivan. But they also return other players like Cadence Thomas, the transfer from G-Dub here, had 467 passing yards, 9 passing touchdowns, also 681 receiving yards and 9 receiving touchdowns. Whenever you have 2 players that could play quarterback, that could play receiver, you got a dangerous offense. They could do a lot with these 2 players, and they have done a lot. I think when it comes down to it, these 2 types of players gives you the most versatility and flexibility that an offense could possibly have. So that's a very good start for them. They also have Sova Ude, who we added as a watch list player. She's going into her junior year, plays running back, had 464 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns last season, as well as 378 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. When she has the ball in her hands, I mean, she's electric, right? She's definitely somebody who has taken some handoffs to the house here. When she gets the ball in her hands, I mean, she's an explosive athlete, so she kind of gives you another very versatile player who can do multiple things. Now, this Grandview team is very complete. They don't really lose a lot. Losing Abby Kirkpatrick, yes, that's tough, but you still bring back your 2 quarterbacks / top receivers, literally, in Cadence Thomas and Brooks Sullivan after her, as well as Sova Ude as well. So you have players to work with on the offensive side. And then defensively, I mean, that's really your strength. They're good. And they're deep as well. This is a defense that will give a lot of teams issues and some. Got to watch them in the Summer Showdown, and they got all the way to the end here playing against Legend. And, you know, that defense put them in a position to win. Unfortunately, offense came up a little bit short there in the red zone. But this Grandview team looked really good in the offseason. Cannot stress that enough. So for me, you know, having them at number 1, it might be recency bias, but I really believe in how good that defense is. Now, offensively, I think losing an Abby Kirkpatrick is tough because she was another just weapon that you had. And I think the more weapons you have on the offense, the better. You can never have too many because you need options to step up when one is getting covered. And so it's a lot of that offensive production is really going to land on the shoulders of Sullivan, Thomas, and Ude here. We'll see if they can do it, but there's most likely going to be other players that have to step up to make this work. If Brooks Sullivan takes another step forward as a passer, there has to be other receivers to be able to catch those passes. Or if she moves over more to the receiver side of things, you know, even then she's going to attract a lot of attention. You're going to have receivers that are open because of her. And so we'll see what they do, you know. This is a Grandview team that I feel like should probably be scoring more points on offense here, but they do have a very good defense, and so I kind of let it go here. And it's not like they have an offense that can't score. I mean, they put 33 on Cherry Creek, right? That's not a bad thing at all. They did only put 13 on Douglas County, though. Well, that's a decent defense. And so when looking at this Grandview team here, this probably should be their league to win. I mean, obviously, they won it last year, so they're already the favorites going into this year. But I think for them to take a step forward, you're probably going to need another offensive player to really step up. You know, there's maybe, and here's the bottom line, at least for me, for Grandview, there's maybe one other offense in the state that has more returners than this Grandview defense, which is saying something. This defense is going to feed on inexperience, which there's a lot of quarterbacks that are first-year starters in 5A, and they're going to go into every game with that as their identity. Offensively, like I said, got a lot of versatile weapons, but maybe a lack of a true wide receiver one that doesn't also play quarterback. So losing Kirkpatrick is tough, but there is plenty of talent on this roster for multiple people to step up or another player to take a step forward into that role. Like I said, really my only concern there, and so that's why I have them at number 1. This is what Hailey had to say about Grandview, who she has at 5. She says, although they had 8 seniors leave, they should have almost the same amount this year, with Jaden Schraubauer leading the defense and Brooks Sullivan leading the offense, similar to last season. They know the competition and how they can improve their mistakes and make those close losses into wins, which I absolutely agree with. But it's going to be a matter of whether they can do it or not. I think there's more questions offensively than there is defensively. That is for sure. But Grandview, I mean, for sure is a team that deserves to be in the top 5, if really not the top 3. I do view them as sort of the true contenders in the 5A classification this year, if not one of the favorites. All right, now at 2 here is Chaparral. I believe Gino also has them at 2 as well. And then Hailey has Chaparral at 4. So there you go there. I mean, this is a team that's consistently been up here, but you know, let's talk about Chap this last season here. Went 14-4, had a good year, you know, went to the playoffs and won some playoff games before losing to Legend in the semis I believe last year they lost in the quarter, so this is at least a step forward. But a tough loss to Legend in the semis, 26-14 would end their season. They do lose a couple players. They lose Brianna Baltazar, who's their second leading flag puller with 103, also third in picks with 6. They lose Jaden Cochran-Bryant, who was their sixth leading flag puller with 35. They lose Addison Bryant, who had 13 sacks and was their second leader in sacks. They also lose Sophia O'Donnell. She was their best athlete, in my opinion, but unfortunately suffered what would end up being a high school career-ending injury, and she was the focal point of that offense. I believe she got hurt in the Arapahoe game, so they did have, almost the rest of the season, a pretty big part of the season to get used to playing without her, but regardless, that is a massive loss for them. Other than that, this Chaparral team pretty much returns everyone else. And so we're just going to go down the line here. Let's start with their quarterback, Zoe Fink, arguably the number one quarterback in the state regardless of class. She's looking to build on a 3,709 yard, 54 touchdown, 428 rushing yard, 2 rushing touchdown season going into her junior year. Over the offseason, got to watch her play plenty of times, and she is impressed, just taking steps forward in her game as a bigger threat on the run and out of the pocket. She's also started since she was a freshman, and so in my opinion, she's poised to take over the state and cement herself as one of the great Colorado quarterbacks of all time, statistically, but also getting a state championship this year would put her in those talks as the best ever. In those talks. Now, her twin, Paige, took a leap from freshman to sophomore year and became a pretty formidable receiving threat for them last season. Defensively, also had 71 flag poles and 11 interceptions, was second in picks, third in polls, and she is showing why she is one of the top 2A players in the entire state. After an off-season of work where she has only continued to shore up other aspects of her game, she's really looking to take over the state, and she had a great season. She already had a great season, catching plenty of footballs from her sister. I could definitely see her kicking into another gear here, though. And so she is one of the best players, one of the best prospects in the entire state. I think both of these girls are obviously college-level players. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But then you got the rest of the Chaparral team as well. And it's not really just those two and the rest. These other players have been around forever. I'm talking about Sydney Matthews, Salem Sherman, those two have been around forever. You also have other contributors like Sutton Pershina, Peyton Barber, Ellen Mendelson, who just got a couple offers as well here. Those are all, Sydney, Salem, Sutton, and Ellen are all productive receivers who are now entering their senior year. And they've played before too, most of them multiple years. I have no doubt that they can be college level receivers, all of them that is. And I think they can make up the best and deepest receiving core in the state alongside Paige as well. All these players I feel like could be number one options on a lot of other teams. And so for all of them to just kind of be on one team and just produce, because that's really what they do. They all produce a bunch of yards here and touchdowns. That's big time. One player I do want to highlight, though, is Peyton Barber. She's one of the fastest players in the state, and I do think gives this offense truly unlimited juice, seemingly on the offensive side of the ball. Look to those seniors as well as Peyton Barber to leave it all on the line this year and in an attempt to bring Chap their first title. I think this offense here, is pretty much the same offense they've had last year, almost the identical offense as the year before, minus O'Donnell, right? Going into this next season, it just kind of feels like there's no more excuses for them. They've been talented. They've been productive against bad teams, against good teams, against playoff teams. I think the only thing that's really left in the career of everyone on this offensive side of the ball for Chaparral is a state title, if we're being honest with you. Now, defensively, they really don't miss a beat either. They return pretty much everyone. They return Molly McWilliams, who is a watchlist player for us, a great rusher who tallied 42 sacks in 16 games, has been one of the best in the state. They bring back Sydney Matthews, who had 17 interceptions in 16 games last year. She returns. They bring back Chloe Petrillo, who should be a watchlist player, and we missed, but we will obviously be pushing her. She was one of the lead flag pullers in the entire state with 142 in 18 games here, and she leads a big three of players who are some of the most productive defensive players in the state. When you have these three players coming back, you're a leader in sacks, you're a leader in picks, you're a leader in flag pulls. I mean, you could pretty much build the rest of the defense around them. And even then, there's still a lot of experience around them as well. This team has played together for a while, it feels. And so here's my bottom line when it comes to Chaparral. On paper, this Chap team returns maybe the most productive offensive and defensive unit in the state. I don't know if there's a more productive offensive and defensive unit in the state in 5A at least. And 4A, maybe TCA as well. But, I mean, Chap returns a lot of players who have been super productive against all sorts of teams. They have been knocking on the door for these last 2 years now. And they've basically had that same team doing the knocking. Eventually, though, you stop knocking and you either open the door for yourself or you leave. They need to mentally get past that block and take what they've been working towards. I see them as the favorites, potentially on paper. On paper, I see them as the favorites. For me, I have them at 3. It's just hard to see them getting over that hump until they do. Now, it's not to say that I doubt them. I definitely think they can. But let's address the elephant in the room. They need to beat Legend. I do not believe they have beaten Legend these last couple, like in the regular season, or even in the fall season these last couple years. That is most likely a team that you are going to have to knock out. Not just win, knock out, because you know they're not going to go out easy. You got to knock them out. That's a team you got to knock out in order to reach your goals. Maybe they end up on the other side of Legend on the bracket. You know, that could happen as well. But at the end of the day, you have too many players coming back for you to be playing the hypotheticals of maybe we just got to have the right bracket pool, right? No matter who they play, they should be winning. Let's keep it a buck there, right? And they have so much potential, not even potential, they have so much like just proof of production. Eventually it just comes down to, okay, well, can they get it done in the playoffs? That is the real question. With all these other teams, you know, the question is, can the quarterback be productive? Can their receivers step up? Can the defense fill the holes that they have? That's the story for all the other teams in 5A here, especially the quarterback question. For Chaparral, the question is, can they get it done as a team in the playoffs? Don't care about the regular season, if I'm being honest with you. At this point, I'm sure they don't really either outside of making the playoffs. It's going to come down to the postseason. They're going to have to be patient. They're going to have to take it week by week. They're going to have to continue to learn. I'm sure there's going to be roles that they're going to have to fill and see how deep they are. And, you know, they're going to get challenged in different ways. Right? I'm sure that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the playoffs. What you do in the playoffs matter. And like I said, there's only so much knocking you could do on the door before you either open it and go through it yourself, or you just leave empty-handed. The choices are theirs for Chaparral. I'm very interested to see what happens this season. Shout out the Finks. Shout out their head coach here. I think they have an excellent program. All they're missing is a state championship ring. Whether they do it or not is the narrative for them this season, straight up. Whoops, and I was about to move on, but I forgot to say Hailey's reasons for Chaparral. She said Chaparral is a pretty mature team as they'll have almost 10 seniors this season with pressure in front from Molly McWilliams and good hands on defense from Sydney Matthews. It has potential for more opportunities for the offense. Also, they have a lot of stat leaders returning for their senior year, so you know it just hits a little different. Reps get more serious. So there you go. That's what she had to say about Chaparral. I think the narrative still stands for them, though, at the end of the day. All right, now let's talk about Legend, who was our number one team in the preseason. Funny enough, Hailey ranked Legend at 2, and then she ranked them at 3. I ranked them at 2, and then Gino ranked them at 3 as well. And so, very interesting to say the least here. None of us ranked them at 1, but let's talk about it. I mean, we obviously all ranked them in the top 3 for a reason. Let's talk about last season. So they went 17-2, a very good season here. The only team they lost to was Mountain Vista last season. Lost to them in the regular season 40-13, and then lost to them at state 48-26 here. Talking about the rest of their schedule, I mean, they beat some good teams here. Eagle Crest Air Academy, Denver East, Grandview by 1, Rock Canyon 40-21, Regis Jesuit at 40-0, Highlands Ranch 44-0, Heritage 47-12, Douglas County in a closer one, 27-12. TCA was a game they kind of had to grind out, but they got that dub there, 35-25. Denver South 27-14, Pondo. They beat Chaparral in the regular season 19-0. They beat Thunder Ridge 34-6, Doherty in the playoffs 32-18, Denver South 32-6, Chaparral again in the semis 26-14, and then like I said, fell to Mountain Vista at state. So all that being said, to only lose pretty much to one team is a good season, right? Obviously you want to win state. That doesn't change for anybody, right? That's the bottom line for sure. But if you're going to compare your season to the rest of the teams that didn't win a state championship, it's as good as it gets. Now, Legend, they do graduate some key players here. Some very productive players at the very least. First off, they lose Maddie Smolin, their leading passer and rusher. Their quarterback for the last couple of seasons, actually. 4,601 passing yards, 70 touchdowns to 20 picks last year. Also 704 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns. She has been the offensive engine or I don't want to say the offensive engine because that makes it sound like other people weren't contributing, but she's been one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the state for this team. And now she graduates, and so that's definitely a tough loss, even if they are able to replace that production. You know, you're not going to exactly find a player like her again. Exactly like her. They also lose some pretty good receivers, the record-breaking receiver duo. Their top two in both Lucy Thompson and Eva Pipkin. Lucy, 1,970 yards, 31 touchdowns, 121 receptions in her first year and last year of flag football. Well, you know, who knows? She's going to Nebraska, so maybe she picks it up there. But a great year, regardless, one of the best receiving years ever in Colorado Girls High School flag football history, so there you go. You also lose Eva Pipkin, though, who is a great second receiver, 46 receptions, 858 yards, 9 touchdowns in 18 games. So that's obviously a tough loss on the offensive side of the ball. They also lose Molly Larson, who's their fourth leading receiver, 366 yards and 6 touchdowns. So losing some decent firepower on the offensive side of the ball, that is always tough here. As far as seniors go on the defensive side, there's really only one that comes to mind here, and that is Janine Norden, who was their lead rusher in sacks with 32. Also was their third leader in flagpoles with 48 there. Other than that, I mean, she's the only top 7 flagpoler that they are losing. They return everyone else. Actually, they really only lose 3 of their top 10 flagpolers, and Norden Thompson and Addison Lesage here. So there you go. Defensively, not really being impacted as much. Still losing a rusher is tough. But other than that, I mean, the rest of the team should be coming back. Offensively, I mean, you lose some big-time producers here. But in a minute, I'm going to tell you why not to worry as much. Let's talk about the key players for Legend, starting with the defense, because I do think that is their strength. Led by Tori Curdy and Jenna Brown and Ryan Matouche. You know, all those players offered, by the way, I believe all of them offered by Ottawa, even as well. I don't know about Ryan, but I know Jenna Brown and Tori Curdy both are, who are excellent rushers. This trio right here should be one of the toughest, if not the best, linebacker rusher groups in the state. This may be the best rush in the state, honestly, led by two. I don't want to say college bound, but they definitely have a lot of talent to play on the college level in Curdy and Brown here. You know, they return most of this unit, but they are anchored down by that rushing group. Return most of that defensive unit, but are anchored down by that rushing group, which will help whatever offense learning curve there is, because I do think there's going to be some leaning on the defense to kind of bail them out of some tougher situations. But let's talk about the offensive side of the ball here. Let's talk about the quarterback position just a little bit here. Just a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit. So it's probably going to be in between. I mean, I did get to talk to Pitts just a couple weeks ago, but it'll probably be in between Presley Easley, who was also one of their better receivers, though. Had 415 receiving yards and 11 receiving touchdowns. Could be due for a breakout season as the number one receiving threat if she doesn't play quarterback. I believe she did play. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she played a little bit of quarterback in that summer showdown. And I mean, they won it all, too. So that's definitely big time. Either way, you could look to her to have a big role on this offense. I do think when you could return receivers, especially top receiving talent, it's never a bad thing to return some experienced receivers to work with an inexperienced quarterback, at least comparatively, right? But the other player that they have that could potentially take on a role and, well, play that quarterback position is Addison Law. Statistically, their second most productive quarterback. I actually got to watch her 2 years ago play against Heritage her freshman year, and I felt like she was a capable starter in that game. It very well could be easily at quarterback and Law at receiver, though, but I do think Addison Law, I mean, she's been kind of slated as their backup quarterback with all the snaps she's been getting these last 2 years. I think she's a capable quarterback. And not just capable of making the playoffs, but potentially even capable of making a deep run. Now, how deep of a run, at the end of the day, is going to come down to what she does on the field. There's only so much projecting she could do, but there's definitely worse solutions at the quarterback position that a lot of other teams are looking at currently right now. I think these two, being your quarterback options is not a bad thing at all. They just got to choose which one. And so there could be some growing pains, there could not be. We'll see what happens. Another player on the offensive side of the ball to maybe look out for is Tori Curdy. She showed out on offense during the summer showdown and could pair with Easley to be a very tough receiving duo to stop. She's a great athlete who could break you down, get a lot of yards after the catch here, has excellent athleticism. Like I said, a next level player. I think she's definitely somebody that could be a over 1,000 yard and double digit touchdown candidate. I don't think that would be surprising at all. So there you go there. Now, before I read my bottom line, because I almost forgot to read Hailey's, let me read Hailey's reasons for Legend here, who, by the way, she has the 3 again. She says this: looking at Legend's roster last season, they had a few top performers as seniors, especially in the receiver position, which causes me to predict them to rank lower. But if Ryan Matouche returns with her leading in interceptions and flagpoles, it can really make an impact on teams' offenses. But similarly to Mountain Vista, 8 seniors leaving can make an impact on a team. And I agree. It's not like it's nothing at all. That's definitely something to look at, to acknowledge, and be like, okay, this is reality, right? The reality of it is when you lose 8 seniors, especially, a lot of those players being big-time producers for an offense or for a team, it doesn't necessarily mean that team is going to run as smooth as the year before, at least at the beginning. And so we'll see what that impact looks like, but this Legend team is very deep. Now, here's my bottom line when it comes to Legend here. Legend showed out in the summer showcase, winning it all, which I think is a very, very good thing for sure. Yeah, Maddie Smolin played a little bit here, but the final day, we did not see her play as they closed out that tournament. I'm pretty sure they did that without Maddie Smolin, which is a big deal. Now, the big question is who takes the reins on offense and who steps up as their primary pass catchers. So it's definitely a role question for them on the offensive side of the ball. And like I said, more of a who question than a production question, by the way, because this team just has great athletes. This program has great athletes. They do some good things over there at Blitz as well. Shout out Blitz. And a lot of those Legend players, they participate in that. It's great to have a club that's pretty much right in your neighborhood. So there you go. While you can expect some growing pains on offense, I mean, it's just hard to imagine them not being productive sooner than later as the top offense in the state, just based off their athletes. Defensively, Jenna Brown and Tori Curdy are going to terrorize quarterbacks around the state and have been some of the best rushers this state has ever seen, just looking at their stats from past years and obviously having watched them the past couple of seasons. Added an experienced Ryan Matush and an overall defense that just returns so much, and you have a defense that is realistically capable of being the number one defense in the state, if not at the very least top 3. This defense is more than talented enough to carry them, but don't get it twisted, that offense is coming. And if they are coming and they go ahead and they show out and they do their thing, then what's to say they can't be the number one team in the state? And they got a lot. They got a lot of talent over there. I mean, we've been talking about reloading and, regeneration and getting players into new roles when talking about all these other top 10 teams. But Legend has been one of the best teams in the state to consistently find talent to replace talent that has moved on or graduated. I mean, just last year, Lucy Thompson was a first-year player. Who could be the next Lucy Thompson for Legend? We will see. Even then, they don't need like somebody to break out of nowhere either. They have plenty of talent as a whole. But can they put it all together at the right time, which is the end of the season? We'll see. We'll definitely see what happens, but no surprises here. I know they're a team that none of us ranked at number 1, but I don't think any of us doubt that they're a contender at the very least, if not one of the teams to beat. I think with all the questions at quarterbacks and other teams having quarterbacks, them not having a quarterback, and other teams, maybe having defenses that are a little bit better. I mean, the only one really is Grandview, right? I think their defense is pretty good and could stand really toe-to-toe with Legends. There's some other good defenses like Arvada West as well that you got to consider. Chaparral returns everyone. Ralston Valley obviously will be coming back. I think arguments could be made for realistically these top 5 teams to all win state this year. Really top 6 teams. If you want to include Valor Christian, make it top 7, you can. Personally, I look at my top 6 here of Grandview, Legend, Chaparral, Mountain Vista, Arvada West, Ralston Valley. Would not be surprised if any of those teams win state this year or make it to state. And once you make state, anything could happen. It's the postseason, right? It's the playoffs. And it's going to be a very wide open 5-8 this year, with that being said. So, we're just going to have to see who steps up. And we're going to have to see who continues to step up week after week and build on what they are able to put together week by week. So, we will see. But regardless, best of luck to Legend and best of luck to the rest of these teams here. Once again, just to list off our preseason rankings, just outside but receiving votes, Denver South, Chatfield, and Thunder Ridge. And then at 10 in our 2026 Colorado Girls High School Flag Football PMC preseason rankings, we have Doherty. At 9, we have Horizon. 8, Douglas County. 7, Valor Christian. 6, Ralston Valley. 5, Arvada West. 4, Mountain Vista. 3, Grandview. 2, Chaparral. And at number 1, right now, is Legend. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for rocking with us. By the way, make sure to check out us at Playmaker's Corner on social media. We've been posting a lot of content there. Shout out our interns here, Angel Roman, who made the Winningest Programs graphic. Basically, she did. Shout out Hailey Stanton, who's worked hard at this. Shout out our other Roman here, Roman Blomeyer, who has made some great content. Check out Shot by Roman here. And you can find him on our page as well as following him too. Make sure you give him a follow. But he's been lighting it up and getting some good pictures and whatnot going. Next week, hopefully, we have the 4A season preview, which Cody and some of our other interns will do. So make sure you check that out next week. But until then, we'll catch you later.